We're on air, and there we go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. Nicholas Knockan Dusquill himself here, and welcome to episode 5 of Table Talk, where we talk all things so you can play on the table with RPGs, strategy, or card. And sort of like last month, I've got have my guests not show up, so I got to do a little bit of improv, and because of that, we're going to do something a little bit special. I have a couple of friends of mine from Wicked Publishing here. Well, we're going to talk a little bit amongst ourselves about some tabletops amongst ourselves, and then I'm going to be showing off something rather special to all of you. So, with that in mind, would y'all mind introducing yourselves?
Sure. Thanks for having us on. My name's Michael Watson. I'm one of the co-founders of Wicked Publishing.
And I'm Matthew, the other co-founder of Wicked Publishing.
And
Now,
we
this
are.
will be
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is going to be rather interesting for y'all, considering y'all are mostly with indie comics, not so much indie tabletop.
True. Although we
Yeah.
do have some things in mind for the future in terms of tabletop as well. So definitely have a lot of plans.
I can imagine. I can imagine. With that in mind, would you talk a little bit about what it is y'all do for indie comics?
Sure. Yeah. So we currently publish a variety of different indie comic and manga creators. And something that we do is we help get the comics out there. You know, we help take care of a lot of the ins and outs of publishing, a lot of the costs that go involved, and we have developed a lot
more
of processes that you might say.
A lot more on the administrative, side of things.
Exactly, yeah, and that allows, and that allows a lot allows for the comic creator to focus on creating their comic instead of having to worry about all the other additional stuff that comes with comic creation.
And because since
I remember
because we're a creator-owned as well, it's not like they have to follow strict rules or strict lining for how they can present certain things. It's their story, their characters, and we wouldn't want them to change anything because we had already fallen in love with the way that they presented it. So we're okay with the way that they choose to go about their creations.
And so, you know, some of our lineup right now includes...
Of course. I remember it.
Sorry, what was that?
I was saying, of course, and if I remember correctly, quite a few of y'all's lineups are currently within funding at the moment. In fact, I think one of them is wrapping up funding and also have been, well, fully funded. I don't think y'all really had a failure yet when it comes to funding, huh?
Not really. Sporkman was had a flexible goal, and so even Sporkman, you know, was able to come back and get success on Indiegogo, and so yeah, no, it seems like a lot of them are doing really well. You know, we started out with Jack Irons, the Steel Cowboy, and that was a huge success, and now we're kind of starting our second rung of crowdfunding campaigns. So there's while not all the Wicked creators are doing crowdfunding, a lot of the ones that are getting a lot of success. So it's really cool to see that.
And for case anyone watching wants to see what it is, if you're a comics fan and want to see what Wicked has to offer, I've made pretty damn sure to put in a link to the Wicked store down below. So be sure to check that out and, you know, support indie, whether they be tabletop, movies, or even comics.
Yeah, you know, it's a good community, and I know there's a lot of crossover there too with tabletop fans. So yeah, please go check out these guys, and they put a lot of hard work into their comics, and I think it shows. So I think there's a lot of stuff to like there.
And hopefully some of them will be in the chat while watching, though I'm pretty sure quite a few of them are busy with other stuff at the moment.
We'll see. I'll post a link in the chat and see if we can get some of these guys in there.
because I'm pretty sure there's a lot going on in the indie comic sphere. Just quite a few things happening. The indie sphere everywhere is very busy.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's booming.
Yeah, it's a good time to be an indie creator. That's for sure.
Hmm.
Certainly. But to get on to the topic we're all here for, we're here to talk tables now.
And the top's the
How, bi-
government.
how big of a fan are the two of you when it comes to tabletop games?
Brad, you want to go
Michael?
first? No,
I'll
why don't you go first?
Okay. I'm not really too experienced with tabletop RPGs like Pathfinder or D&D. I have tried a few, like back in the day, like before I turned 18 with my brother when he was playing with his friends for a little bit before being stationed somewhere else. And I mean, I had fun with it. It was pretty confusing since it was my first time playing it.
Have you
But
all really done D&D Pathfinder, or have you
Oh
seen
yeah.
/ tried anything else?
Oh yeah. See, that's why I was gonna let him start because I'm on the other side
but
where I'm
that's
big
kind
into
of what I've been kind of leading.
into the RPGs
What
too
I'm a
stuff.
little
You know.
leading to is that I don't know if that was a D&D Pathfinder or whatever generation of Dungeons and Dragons it was. I had personally assumed that they were just going off the normal stuff, which was modern at the time. And
Right.
granted, this was over 10 years ago, like 2007, 2008. So the generation might be different now. But I just assumed it was just the normal stuff. And then I have a friend who actually plays Dungeons and Dragons here or there, who actually created his own, like, in a sense, his own tabletop, where
So he
instead
kind
of
of like
fantasy, it's
So is it
complete
like
sci-fi.
homebrew, or did he just make his own game?
I would probably say homebrew, but the way he did it, it kind of blends itself into its own style of game, in a sense, because it follows the same path as Dungeons and Dragons. It seems like with how you set things up and how it's all played out, but the races, the kind of universe it's in is completely different. Whereas instead of elves, you'll have like reptilian aliens or little things like that. So instead of fantasy, it's more sci-fi based. So like a Star Wars type of tabletop.
I can see that.
But for just tabletop in general, I'm personally more of a card game fan. Like Magic the Gathering and a few other ones. I don't like.
And then where I'm coming from would be, I guess, and then
different ones.
And then I guess where I would be coming from would be the opposite of that, which that I have much more experience playing tabletop games.
As I said, I have many friends who play
for example,
nothing but Magic the Gathering.
Am I coming through? All right, or can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're coming through. I think there just might be a bit of a delay in the call because we're kind of talking.
Okay, I'm gonna jump out and see if I can jump back in.
Okay.
All right, no problem. But yeah, I mean, I've been playing Magic, I think since I was about 14 or something like that. I stopped playing for a moment.
A friend of mine tried to get me into Magic. Let me practice with a Goblin deck, and I really couldn't get too much into it.
Oh man, Goblin decks can be really good if you know how to work the Goblin decks. It's the same thing with the Rat deck and like a lot of the creatures that are more smaller in toughness and strength. Those have a lot of workarounds that can work with it versus, let's say, like a Dragon deck. I mean, it's still hard to work with, but if you have an all-red Dragon deck, you'll be fine because you have burns, you have the firepower.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Michael, is everything going fine now? We're not delaying or anything.
Michael?
I could have sworn I heard him. Maybe he's not back yet. But whenever I was into card games, I was more into Yu-Gi-Oh, which is also another thing a couple of friends of mine do all the time. But I was into that when I was a kid, and I always lived in remote places, so I never really had anyone to play with. So it was just cards laying around doing nothing. So I just ended up selling them.
No, yeah, I mean that's why I kind of fell out of Magic the Gathering is because either all my friends who would play it lived extremely far away, like over 5 miles from me, and I grew up without really being able to get rides anywhere. Either I had to hoof it or I had to take the bus, and I didn't have the money for the bus, so I would just have to walk, and I'm not going to walk 3 4 hours just to go see a friend for an hour or two, and then I have to walk back. You know, I mean I've done it a few times, but
Hmm.
it's not a preference of mine. I mean, I
Yeah,
love my friends, but
I can feel
no
that.
thanks.
I can feel that.
But I mean, I used to play a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh. I tried to get into it. I had a few friends that were really into it. They would collect them. I think a few even still have some to
Right.
this day. But I think for them it's more of a collector's item rather than or
Well,
something for nostalgia instead of like rather playing it.
let me tell you, if I knew back then what I know now, I would have saved those cards to sell them for like 5 times as much. Because holy crap, people will pay literally anything for those cards.
No, yeah, they will definitely pay a lot of money for it. Like I watched a video to see like because I had always questioned myself why there's been like this huge price rack for like card games and everything else like that. Uh, hold on, I guess he's having a little bit of trouble getting in.
I guess. And I think a lot of it is due that, yeah, I guess you can say that the card packs are sort of a precursor to the loot boxes we have now, where they got high cost but very little chance of it, being a thing, of it being
Yeah,
worthwhile.
that is true, but the way I've always looked at it is that even with those packs, well, sure, you might not get let's say from Magic, you might not get a mythic or a mythic you might want, but you'll always get a rare. You'll always get uncommons, and you'll always get commons. So for me, that's like okay, at least I'm getting something out of it in a sense.
Yeah,
Sure, maybe no
some loot
holographic or
boxes
mythic, but
are kind of the same, but it's still very much a gamble.
no, I totally understand that.
Yeah. Well, I
But
just had to resend Mike the link, so let's see if he'll get in a bit.
not a problem.
People, it's not a live stream unless there's a technical issue somewhere.
Yeah, because otherwise it can be considered edited.
And hey, we have a Tank Furret. How you doing, Tank? Hope you're doing fine. Looks like you're the first person to be in the chat. You haven't really missed much. We're just getting everything sort of situated and filling out our guests to see how into tabletops they are. And good timing because it seems like Mike is back.
Hey, sorry about that.
Yeah, it's no problem. And yeah, you sound a bit more responsive, so hopefully we're not delaying as badly anymore.
I switched from on my phone to my computer. I thought that might be a little more stable.
That'll probably be it. So we heard that Matt is more of a card player than a RPGer. So let's hear a little bit from you. What's your experiences with tabletop, and how deep are you into it?
What did I miss real quick? Did you guys discuss the kind of the cards and stuff? And
yeah, we were just talking about Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh.
Okay, yeah. I used to. I've been playing a lot more Magic because of Matt and stuff. But I do have a kind of a somewhat more experience playing tabletop games.
So what kind of tabletop games you gotten into, or do you have any preferences with them?
So when I got into college, because I had never grown up playing any tabletop games, it wasn't until I got to college that my friends introduced me to those kind of games. And so we started off with Dungeons and Dragons 3.5. Played the Tomb of Horrors. That was fun. We almost got to the end, and our teammate assassinated us all in our sleep, like right before the ending. It was so awful.
Oh, what's a little dysfunction in the party?
I guess that's right. Yeah.
Oh, and Tank, I'm doing good. How about you guys? Tank's asking how we're doing.
Oh, good. Hey, Tank, how's it going, man? Glad you're able to join us.
apparently Matt's muted for whatever reason. He's probably got something going on.
Maybe. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious.
What we got going on today?
No, it's
Well,
alright. Sorry about that.
as
Hold on.
Oh, no worries.
as I said at the beginning of the live stream, you probably missed. Us three, are probably just going to be talking a little bit about tabletops and palling around for a little bit, and then later on, I'm going to be showing off a thing I've been working on for a few months before I had it on the back burner due to some real life stuff going on, but hoping to get a little back into it as I also start on my own comic stuff. So going to be
Nice.
showing that off as a little something special due to a lot of recent complications.
No, that's exciting, man. I'm looking forward to seeing that reveal.
Oh yeah, it's no problem. I guess as far as I can say, as far as my own experience with tabletop, I'm pretty sure I talked about this last month with Bob, but hey, new guests, new conversations, new sharing. Well, I've been the things, my experiences of role playing has been before my experience with tabletop, because I've actually role played on World of Warcraft when I was like 15 years old. I'm like 24 right now. So that kind of like helped me out a little bit to ease into when I was like 16 or 17, where I met some friends in my second high school where I graduated, where they invited me over to their place and they put me through my first tabletop, which was 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons, I believe.
Oh, really?
And,
okay.
Yeah, and I really didn't quite understand how character creation with Dungeons and Dragons was at the time, so they gave me a bit of an easy thing, to start off with, which was a Dragonborn Paladin, I believe it was, where I actually kind of accidentally broke the game a little bit on my first try.
Really?
because how I had that Paladin set up was while he was in full plate armor and used a ultra great sword, he actually had more defense boost with that than he ever would with a shield. The DM was like, okay, that's not supposed to happen, but I guess we'll take it as we go.
That's a flexible DM right there.
Oh yeah. Oh hey, we got Neo Star. How's it going, Neo?
All right.
Oh,
What's up?
Tank said mostly play D&D. D&D first to 3.5, which I think 3.5 is technically Pathfinder, I think.
I would still consider them separate myself, just because I played 3.5 and then I transitioned to Pathfinder. And Pathfinder, while similar, is still I would still consider it a separate, unique system, and it's certainly a separate world. They've definitely built their own mythology in the Pathfinder universe.
Yeah, I can see that. He also said
Very fun
Traveler.
game.
I don't know Traveler. I don't know Traveler actually. And,
really?
And a ton of Cyberpunk. That's actually kind of interesting.
Really?
Because after the D&D one, I played a few more stuff with D&D, mostly like just like after that point. That was like the only like in physical meet game I ever played. Everything else was like online only.
Oh, okay.
I played, a few more D&Ds. Some were 4th edition. Then I had a couple of 5th. There was also Pathfinder and 3.5. I also done plenty of homebrew. And there was an indie tabletop game I helped beta test that was a bit sci-fi.
Really? What was the title on that one? Do you remember?
It's called Horizon.
Horizon, interesting.
And that one's kind of interesting because I was friends with the DM for a bit, and he not only did he wanted to do a sci-fi campaign because he'd never really seen a whole lot of sci-fi tabletop games, he also wanted to do something he's never seen before when it came with tabletop, and we've all played so like did like the role plays and the tabletops with text only. We really didn't do voice chats and camera talks, and he thought it was a pretty good moment to do it without it being too awkward, which was it having okay, it's fucking hilarious. But it was had some erotic elements to it. Let's just say that.
That's
Yeah,
that's a new one.
he wanted it to be really out there.
Hey
Sounds
man,
like
if
it.
you're yeah, well if you're going for if it's a new audience there, so find that niche,
Yeah. So
Yeah,
there's also
you could look at it that way.
yeah,
right?
also that, but I did play a Cyberpunk one. I'm not sure if you guys heard of it, but you ever heard of the Sprawl before?
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
No,
No.
not familiar with that one.
The Sprawl is a Cyberpunk tabletop game that operates on a D6 system, and
Huh.
how it works is that you play as sort of mercenaries for hire to the big corporations, and you do stuff in this area called the Sprawl. Which, if you're any familiar with Star Wars, it's kind of like a Coruscant kind of system,
Mm.
where
Mhm.
you had like the political elites and the rich on the top, and then the like the big planet wide city. You got the rich and the elite on the top, and then the further down the levels you go, the spires, like the scummier and scummier it gets.
I like that. That's a fun idea.
Mhm.
It's sort of like that. My favorite class there is definitely being the Fixer, I believe it's called. That is a very interesting class, because what that basically is, you're basically sort of like a gang boss. Your whole thing is about running a bunch of businesses to get supplies and money and intel. And
Hmm.
what you basically do in the story is that you're the person the corporations talk to get people for a job, and then you find the other players and give them the job.
You're like the quest giver almost.
Pretty much. And it's a
Hmm.
very interesting kind of class. I really liked it.
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah, that
pretty
is cool.
interesting.
Yeah, I like that the world and the setting. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Kind of reminds
So,
me of well, not just a little bit. The kind of the Star Wars. I don't know if you ever played the Star Wars Edge of. I think it's Edge of the Galaxy universe, something like that. But
Edge of
it's
the
a
Empire.
yeah, I believe that's what it's called.
Yeah.
It's got its own special dice. I believe it's got like
Okay.
purple, green, yellow dice and stuff. And I played that one at one of those kind of like society of style events every Friday for a while. It
Never
was
played.
fun.
I never played any Star Wars outside of some homebrews.
Oh, really?
I never played any of the official Star Wars. And
Okay.
I think I've actually also done a superhero one based off of the old Marvel tabletop game.
Like a homebrew version?
No, no,
I
no,
didn't
no.
even know that they had a tabletop version for any
The official
superhero.
Marvel tabletop game.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, there's one like decades ago. It's kind of like out of out of production. They don't do updates for it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Oh,
is
was
kind of
it
sad. It's kind of sad 'cause it's actually kind of the character creation for that is kind of interesting.
was
Oh,
it a
and
D20
Tank
system?
is leaving. You have a good one, Tank. Have a good one at work.
Have a great one.
Mhm.
But yeah, as I said, it's a very interesting system they had with how all the powers and origins worked out.
Yeah, I've always been curious about playing like a superhero genre.
Yeah,
I've
that
seen some
sounds pretty
interesting ones.
curious.
Yeah,
Pretty,
there's quite a few ones. There's a couple for Marvel. I think there's one for DC, and then you got some that aren't affiliated with the two, but are still very much superhero based. I believe one of them is like post-apocalyptic a bit with some dystopia mixed in there. You got some superheroes in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's
That
one
sounds
I
pretty
want to
interesting,
say
honestly.
I want to say it's called Brainiac, but don't quote me on that.
Hmm.
I can't remember. There's like it's like I remember seeing it at the store a couple years back. It was like a hero one, but it wasn't based off any of anything. Yeah, I
Okay.
can't quite remember what it was called necessarily.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, it looks pretty fun.
And
You know.
quite recently, I haven't gotten my hands quite yet, but I managed to win myself a PDF version and a hardcover version of a brand new indie tabletop game that reached their funding, and I'm going to be receiving that in July, and I can't wait to get my hands on that because that would actually be the first ever physical tabletop gaming manual I've ever had, and it looks absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. Especially considering that I have been credited in there for at least one creation in there. I don't know if it's going to be for any others, but I know at least one of my creations is going to be within that book, and I've been credited for it.
That's awesome, man.
Oh, yeah, as I said, I really cannot wait to get my hands on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to look so good in my library.
Yeah, I bet, man. Yeah, it'll be nice. That'll be one to savor for a while.
Oh,
yeah.
How did you get involved in working on that project?
What's the style of the game, or more of the genre, I should say?
Well, to answer Michael, I got involved with it because I hope none of you two are getting arrested.
Not yet.
Oh no, that's sirens going off. Where I live, it's pretty common, and there's also a thunderstorm going on, so that's partly why I've been muting myself here and there.
That's fair enough. I was wondering why you were muting yourself, but to answer Michael, the how I managed to get myself involved with that is actually completely and purely by accident. Thank you, Neo. Thank you very much. It was completely by accident because I just so happened to stumble across one of their tweets about their project, and I looked into it and was like instantly fascinated by it. So I started interacting with their Twitter account, which they've been very responsive. They're nothing but cool people because even despite them being fully funded, when they start working on the project, they actually like interacted with their community and are like, "Hey, you are all a bunch of cool creative people. Put some stuff into some replies, and we might put them into the books. We want the community to be a part of creating the world for the game, and that's how some of my creations got in there, and how I ended up winning the free copies of the book is I submitted a few characters using not the rule sets, but like the concepts of their races, classes, and world. And came up with some character designs. And if I remember right, I could have sworn it was supposed to be sort of like a Well, I really could have sworn it was supposed to be like, hey, if your character's our favorite, we'll pick it out. But I'm pretty sure it was completely done by raffle, and I just managed to luckily win the first prize for it.
Damn, that's awesome. That's some good luck right there, man.
Right there.
Yeah, for real.
Especially considering I never win those raffles ever.
Really?
Yeah. So I definitely consider myself lucky in that regard. And then to go to Matt, it's definitely a fantasy sci-fi, a little bit with more on the sci-fi side of things, and because it's got like aliens and bio robots and all that stuff, right? And but it's still got like magic, like everything's pretty much like run on magic, and they pride themselves on having a living rule set, which I always found fascinating to have because like the way they describe is that our game is meant to be broken and reshaped by design. Like you're literally allowed to take the mechanics and then do whatever you want with it. Because if I remember right, they had like a character design where someone was a prototype, which is a race of biomechanical androids that can, take their subconscious and put it into other pieces of electronics. And they came up with a character design where a prototype transferred their consciousness into a battleship. And the creators are like, yeah, you can totally do that in this game. It's perfectly fine. So, yeah, you can literally do whatever you want with that system.
Yeah, that's cool. I like flexible systems like that.
Oh, yeah, so
that sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah,
so I definitely cannot wait to get my hands on that and start messing about with that because I've been honing my DM skills lately. I'm more of a player than a DM, but no one really complained about my DMing style. And I've been mostly cutting my teeth on some sci-fi using Horizon, though we haven't really been using the sex stats, as it were. We've been playing it pretty vanilla, And
Not quite diving into that part of the game yet.
yeah, though I wasn't really considering my friends. It probably won't take much convincing to do that because even without mechanics, they still mention like sex and stuff like that for comedic purposes. So I imagine somehow that's going to get worked in.
Oh, I'm sure.
So but I've been thinking it would be kind of good to stretch away from Horizon because that's outside of that and like one time with 5E has been the only times I've done DMing, so I would not mind trying something different out. And I think that game, Veil of the Void, I think that could be an interesting project to get behind because I've been having some ideas for that.
Nice. Yeah, that's pretty exciting, man.
Oh, yeah.
What's the name of the one that you just backed?
I haven't backed it. I just been I've been just getting involved with it, but it's called Veil of the Void. You can find them on Twitter if you just search up for that name.
Mm-hmm.
You search up Veil of the Void. I think the Twitter handle is like, what is it? Just 1 second.
I think I found it.
That's Publishers, plural, SDG.
Yeah, SDG Interactive Publishers.
They've been very involved with the Twitter community. They're very responsive. They've been showing off a lot of amazing artwork. I really love it, especially the artwork for the for the Reapers, which are a kind of like ethereal race, sort of, and the Quarians. The Quarians, I am very much interested in because they're basically blue-skinned, four-armed dwarves.
Oh.
And of course, as we all know, dwarves are the master race.
Get out of here.
Hey, if it wasn't for the fact they're all very much comfortable living inside of their holes, they would have just steamrolled the world. We all know it.
Guess we can be grateful for that at least.
Oh, yeah. They only care about living inside their holes and making money. The only reason why they haven't conquered their world is because they don't care about world conquest.
Oh, they just care about gold, man. They care about minerals. That's what
Give
it
me
is.
that money.
They care about money in certain ways.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, I've been, even though tabletop games are still very much recent for me as far as RPGs and strategies go, mostly, with childhood is mostly card games and board games. I've been making up for it lately with dabbling my hands in just about everything. Oh, I forgot. I also very much went into Call of Cthulhu and
Oh God, you read my mind.
and Vampire the Masquerade.
I can't say I played the Vampire the Masquerade, but I Call of Cthulhu is probably my favorite RPG game, just because I love the genre and the stories, and the system is so much fun.
I'm actually surprised someone actually managed to make a Lovecraftian RPG tabletop game. It's actually kind of neat.
Yeah, it's a good system. I like it. It's a D100 system, so it's based on the percentiles, and it's got a good feel to it. I love the 1920s aspect of it, and it's a good game.
It's definitely all around a good feel. I just wish that, well, in a way, Call of Cthulhu can go beyond just Cthulhu. You can go into the other stories as well and involve the other gods.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, and I even got this. I have this awesome book. I love it. It's called, I think it's Monstrum Malius, Monstrum Monstorum, or look it up. It's basically like a Call of Cthulhu monster book, and it's got builds for the Call of Cthulhu RPG game for every old god, every new god, every canon creature, plus every other like vampires and It's got everything.
It's basically additive rules for Call of Cthulhu.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's a nice way to really round out the book with other kind of creatures, and even like they even have animals like bears and wolves and stuff. So it's a really good resource.
And it's actually kind of funny because I'm pretty sure none of you two watch my videos, huh?
We have not seen too many of them. No.
No,
I need
probably
to
not.
check out some more of them.
If I remember right, number 3, I did a showcase for what was it? Heirloom weapons. Right.
Mm.
Which is additive rules for 5th edition, and in there I talked about like how absolutely important additive rules and supplicants are for tabletop games. I remember if I mentioned in there, supplicants and additives are basically like mods for video games.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Like sure. Some games, you can play vanilla for like forever and be perfectly fine. But to a lot of people, supplicants and additives can really extend a game's lifespan and add in all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah, I could totally see that. They always say that a lot of people say that games with mods are always going to last longer than games without mods.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, just look at Skyrim.
Yeah,
It wasn't mods, that game would not have lasted as long.
Same thing with Sims, man. Same thing with Sims. There's thousands of Sims content.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, because my fiance loves Sims, and she's really into checking out what mods they have, and like being able to like totally not what the game was intended for, but making it work in that way. In a sense, like she'll probably not like this. I'm gonna say it, but she found a way to make an actual a whorehouse in a sense, like a
Jesus.
harem in a sense. And I was just like, how? She's like, well, first you have to have this mod, and then you use this mod, and it all came by chance because something happened in the game where one person died. So I was just like, you know what, screw it. Why don't I just do this? And I was like,
actually, speaking of that,
hey,
I actually remembered a thing on Twitter, and I actually want to ask y'all, how do y'all feel about having some controversial topics and situations happening in tabletop RPGs or just RPGs in general? How do y'all feel about that?
I'm personally fine with it. Especially because coming from that Call of Cthulhu, being a big fan of that system, I always try to play the horror up as much as possible. So, so I definitely didn't shy
I
away
have
from
no
that stuff.
problem with those kinds of things either. I mean, sometimes it'll totally, especially for tabletop, because sometimes the players that you're controlling, in a sense, will or telling them where to go, they won't totally expect anything like that, and then something like that happens, and they're like, oh,
Yeah, it's like a
Because
what the heck moment.
because I remember right on Twitter, like maybe earlier this month or last month, there was like a tweet asking people in the tabletop community if any DMs put in like racism into their tabletop games and how they handle that, and that tweet had a lot of like mixed responses, with some people
Really?
saying yeah, it's fine, like there's racism in real life, why not in a game, and then people are like, oh, and then there was some just like only if like the rest of the players are fine with it, and then others like, no, and you're a horrible person for putting it in there.
well,
I would say as long as it fits a story. If it's
yeah. I mean, as
what's
long
going
as
on.
it fits the story, or you're trying to go for like what
Historical
most
piece.
of the fantasies will go with. Like, I mean, from what I always remembered, orcs were usually specious in a way. I mean, you could call it that since they're different races and in a sense different species.
From
But
like the way I go about with it is that when it comes to like writing stories and DMing and stuff, I am very much a world builder first and foremost. I like to craft the world before I make the story and the NPCs and all that to do whatever. I very much want the world nailed down as much as possible before I start, doing actual work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to like controversial topics, like let's say racism, it just makes it all feel more real
Real.
because, like, even
Mm-hmm.
in real life, we have, races for something as petty as skin color. Imagine how much worse it would be if there were legitimate other sentient species we have to share the world with, right? It
Yeah. Yeah.
it, it it makes some realism into the world, grounds everything into real world, gets you more invested that way, whether you realize it or not. And it would even put in some consequences for the choices the player makes in character creation, because they would, depending on what races they are, they could actually lock themselves out of some situations or open up others just simply because of who they are. And that's kind of like how real life works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
In-
don't I don't see a problem with adding controversial things like that, or you know,
Yeah, or
I
even religion or little things like that. Because I mean, the way I've always looked at it is that people don't really want to play like in a sense you could say a two-dimensional game where it's you're the good guy, go fight the bad guy in a sense. A lot of people like more what you could say is third dimensional or
nuance.
even beyond. They
more
want something tangible in a sense. People
moral
like tangible
ambiguity,
things. Yeah, and even ambiguity, but I mean, even tangible works a little bit better because it's more realistic. Because everybody really likes having that line being there, but at the same time being able to kind of dip in between in a sense.
Just last week, I got into a game with some friends of mine from college that we're doing on Discord now since we all pretty much graduated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We happened to come across a pretty controversial situation actually, where we're trying to go on our way to this tournament to win a dragon's hoard to get some to get some relics, but mostly because we've been hired by one of the top mercenary bands to fight the tournament for them. And we came across this town, and my character found out that there was some odd noises coming down from the ruins of a building, and they wanted people to like investigate it, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I got everybody else, and we went over to the ruins to just basically just sit our ass and wait for nighttime to see what happens. We come across a golem, I believe, that got very hostile. We started attacking it and destroyed it. Then a druid came out of nowhere demanding what the hell are we doing. Then like all hell like broke loose because I forgot my for everyone to know, my character is a I forgot what it's called. My character's a shade, which is like a character who's died, but because he had some regrets or some anger before he died, it was such a powerful feeling that a bit of his soul stayed in his body, so he just continues living on, right?
Mm.
As sort of like a semi undead being. He has this thing called a soul sense, where he can see souls and spirits and this, that, and the other, right? I completely forgot to do my soul sense while we were at the building, and when weird shit started happening, I did the soul sense, and come to find out that the burned ruins we were in was the ruins of an orphanage, and there was dozens of dead kid souls just right there
Oh,
around the
yeah.
orphanage, right?
I just hate when the dead kids start attacking you.
And as it turns out, the druid, not knowing how exactly to get rid of those spirits, made the golem to scare the spirits into submission until he figured out what the hell to do.
Damn.
And it's because we destroyed the golem, we got rid of the only thing that was scaring the spirits. And so they started getting like really, really angry, and the druid's like, if we don't stop them before it's too late, they're going to wind up like wiping out the entire country because there's nothing we can do about them. Their anguish is that powerful, right?
Mm.
So, without knowing what exactly to do so quickly, guess what we had to do?
What's that?
We had to use a special flamethrower to burn those kids' souls into oblivion.
Oh man, that's brutal.
And what was even more brutal about that was the fact that my character, how he died was that he was actually an angel to the god of luck, but due to in a situation of extremely bad luck, he got exiled from his god's domain and became mortal again. But he had even more bad luck. He just had a really unlucky day, ironically enough, and he wound up in a war zone, right? And within a split second, he just straight up freaking died due to either like straight arrow fire or a straight sword strike or whatever. He just instantly died on that warfield, right? But because he went through so much injustice for no reason whatsoever, his anger basically made his soul claw its way back into the body, and he just started going on a murder spree in that warfield. And he saw that him coming back to life, being reborn on a battlefield as sort of a sign, and thought that he has been chosen to be the champion of the god of war at that time. So for like hundreds of years, he's lived on as basically the perfect soldier, right? But
Mm.
in the modern day, there hasn't been a major conflict in forever and a half. So he's been wasting away, losing his strength and muscle memory from lack of use, as he's been pretty much a lowly mercenary. And one mission of him being a mercenary wound up having him be an assassin to some some major influencer in a country, to which he did kill, but he ended up getting caught, but he got arrested, thrown into prison, and that's where he got caught up with his current group, where he's kind of just trying to be getting comfortable again with having comrades, since he hasn't been in a major war in so long. Camaraderie is kind of a foreign concept to him again, after he's been missing all the comrades that are basically dust now. And it's sort of like Cholo through that whole arc of trying to become friendly with people again, try to get used to be with the living again. And on the first leg of the journey, we wound up finding this kid, right? like this really, really young kid. And the kid wanted to go along with the group because he was like being abused by his own parents. He just wanted to leave, right? And everyone was like having a vote of whether or not to take the kid, and my character was the last one to get the vote. Now, this is a guy who has been basically on the fringe of society. He only knows combat and betrayal and all that stuff. Anyone who's he ever deemed worthy to be friends are long dead and gone before him. And he's been a warrior and a soldier for like hundreds of years. So, he's seen some really effed up stuff, and especially including, with women and children, right? And he walked up to the kid, looked him right in the eye, trying to decide whether or not it's worth bringing this kid along. Guess what this kid said to him? Try and guess what this kid said to him.
Shit. I don't know, man. What do you say?
You remind me of Papa.
Oh boy.
Hey guys, I gotta get going back to work.
Oh,
But
do you?
thanks for
Okay.
having me on. I'll be listening to it on YouTube while I'm working. So
All right,
I might be
that's
in the
fair
chat.
enough.
I might not be.
All
I
right.
can stay on for a little while longer if you're up for it.
Oh yeah, I guess I can still stay on.
Cool. I got another half hour, 45 minutes or so in me.
Okay. After I tell this one, after I finish up this, we'll get on to showing off this thing I've been working on.
Oh, nice. Yeah, definitely.
So after that, like my character was very much taken aback. So he basically said, okay, yeah, we're taking the kid, right? And since then, he's like been trying to train the kid to defend himself. Like he's been teaching him how to fight, how to skin and gut kills, and been showing him how to use firearms and buying him guns and ammunition, right? But while we were at the orphanage, that kid was there watching, and he was watching as my character was burning the literal souls of orphans.
Jesus.
Talk about rough, right?
And this is in your own setting, I take it?
No. This is a setting a friend of mine made because
Oh, that's right. That was your friend's setting. Okay, yeah.
because a friend of mine was doing the DMing there.
Damn, that's wild, man.
Oh yeah, needless to say, there's some controversy going on there.
Yeah, they're definitely not shying away from that.
Oh, definitely not. So, with that, unless there's something else you want to talk about, we can go on to this. To the
let me
special
try to think.
video.
Yeah, not much. Just anyone out there definitely recommend checking out Call of Cthulhu. Oh, that's right. I was gonna mention earlier. It's based on what's called the basic role playing system. I believe that's the name of it, and it's actually pretty cool. It's by Chaosium, and if you get the basic role playing book, it's just a basic set of rules that you can adapt to basically any setting you want. So if you're trying to create a setting, it's a really good system use because it's very pliable and very flexible in that way.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a fun thing to get into. But let's talk about the project you wanted to bring up with us because I know you've been excited to show this off.
Oh yeah, I'm about ready to put on the screen share and show this
Awesome.
bad boy off.
Mm,
Let's get to it.
let's do it.
Share, and I think I got myself to be the priority. Hello, Infinity. And here we are. I like to call this little project. It's it's a working title, but I like to call this a game of wild luck.
Oh boy. I like the title already.
Oh yeah, and this is what I call a weird western because it's definitely got that going on for itself. It's a western world that it's a western setting that takes place in a completely other world. It's completely fantasy world. It's not Earth at all, though it's kind of based on the Wild West and the early Republic of the United States before the great expansion in the West.
So it's kind of set. Would you say it's set in our world then, or would you say it's like our world?
It's a completely, utterly different world, different geography, different cultures. This, that, and the other. The only thing that's really similar is that it's gonna be what's called the Republic is definitely based off like the old United States before the Great Expansion through the Wild West, and you got the Wild West itself. And even though it's probably never going to be shown, there's definitely mentions of the great land to the east, where basically where this world's Chinamen come from. But outside of that, you're probably not going to see too much else with parallels to real world Earth, really. Because again, it's completely fantastical. And actually, a fun fact: there is a comic that I am working on my own that I still need to find an artist for and to find a publisher for. That is actually based off of this game, but several hundred years in the future of it.
More of a sci-fi take?
No, it's still very much the same, and the reason why it's all still the same will be made clear when I kind of explain how the world is set up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And to explain that, I'm just going to read this introduction here.
Cool.
It is a time of great opportunity and optimism. For generations, many men and women had wondered what was on the other side of the Great Ravine, a wide expanse of unscalable depths that divided the land from north to south. It was unsurmountable. Early bridge construction would fail, and ships going around the shore would never be seen again. The land westward of the Great Ravine was a subject of curiosity, mysticism, superstition, and ambition. Now it is achievable. Thanks to modern technology and the domination of iron and steel in the world, the Great Ravine has been traversed thanks to industry and perseverance. Bridges formed up and down the Great Ravine to cross over and begin exploring. There is even a large governmental project commissioned by the Republic to begin building a rail line so trains could be the backbone of expansion. A whole decade have went by, resulting in 60 miles of main line and no end in sight. There were many railways sneaking away from the main line as industry turned the West into a coal-powered metal spider web. Many cities and settlements sprung up in that time, with various rates of success as resources were found. But things were not easy. The Republic was slow to enforce order in the sudden and massive addition to their territory. They lacked the manpower to feed the growth. They greedily ate up, and many elements took advantage of this. The West provides great opportunity, but with incredible risk as outlaws now roam the countryside along with the dangerous wildlife. It's wild in the West, so you better have some iron or steel on your hip. Your best companion is your gun, and reasons to use it peer around the corner daily.
Nice.
What's essentially how this world is built up is that there's this landmark called the Great Ravine. The entirety of the west of the Great Republic has been dominated by this thing. And before the industrial revolution, nothing could ever be built to cross that, nor could you go down and up it. It was way too steep. Like basically all climbers would basically die in the middle of the trip. And every time everyone tried to sail around it, they would just never be seen again. Right?
Mm.
But once steel was made and coal power was a thing, they finally managed to able to make bridges sturdy enough to cross the Great Lakes, and now they are finally exploring this land that no human has ever set foot on before. Though the problem is, despite all the years of exploring, there is no West Coast. And no matter how long they explore, they will never be a West Coast because I'm having a little. This is where kind of the weird Western kind of kicks in, where there is no end to the West.
Oh wow.
It goes on forever,
That's
and so
awesome.
that's why nothing ever changed because they're all focused on as soon as we find the West Coast, dominate that and fill in the middle, we'll start we'll start getting comfortable, deal out, law as it needs to, create civilization, and then finally start advancing as need be. But the problem is there is no end to the West, therefore there is no end goal. You just keep expanding, you keep exploring. There is no end goal. It's just
Keep
adventure and
going.
danger as far as the eye can see.
That's pretty awesome. That's a really, really cool and interesting idea. I like that a lot.
Yep, and because of that, it's like no matter how far you go out, the fringe elements just go one step further, and it's lawless.
Jeez. What's fun about that is I could because I've already thinking about wanting to get a game like once I mean I'm thinking in my mind like let's go west and you just want to keep pushing as far west as you can and just keep going and you know what I mean.
And the longer you stay in, the farther west you go, the weirder things get.
Oh man, that's awesome.
And I have quite a few interesting mechanics with this, especially right here with currency.
That's always important. Yeah.
How currency works here is that the note, which is basically the currency of the Republic, which is basically the $1 bill, the $5 bill, $10 bill, $20 bill. They just call it the note. Completely worthless. The note does not matter a damn thing out in the West because you can't eat it, nor can you defend yourself or your family.
Uh,
Completely worthless. It means absolutely nothing, right? But do you know what is worth more than gold in its weight? Ammunition.
mm,
Specifically, military grade ammunition. Because anyone can take, some scrap metal and some, bootleg powder and, do some damage with that. What you really need is some official Republic military grade ammunition. That's the stuff that's worth it.
got a
So,
little more punch to it, huh?
oh yeah, it's kind of like based off of Metro. If you ever played those games,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
where you can use the military grade ammunition. All
Right.
grade ammunition count as armor piercing, so they pierce through cover and deal more damage. But they're a lot more valuable as a currency.
That's interesting. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, especially with how they're ranked, because they're all based on their caliber. You know how like how every caliber is like point something, right?
hmm
And basically add up all the calibers together, and that'll come up with your money. And then you have the special thing called. Then you have the special stuff called gauges. And the reason why that is because gauges are the only things that are a whole number. So basically, gauges are your big dollar signs. That
Okay.
that's your millions right there with the gauges, especially considering shotguns are way more popular than anything else, because it's like, hey, I don't need to aim. I just point, shoot, and everything in the general direction is dead. About anybody can use a shotgun, right?
True. Yeah, it doesn't take much skill there, I suppose.
Way more people use gauges, they're whole numbers, so they got a lot more kick to it. So, gauges are way more valuable than calibers.
But they're probably much more rare, I would imagine. Or
Oh
at
yeah,
least harder to
you
obtain.
definitely have to like kill somebody in order to get their gauges.
Mm.
No
And
one's
what are the calibers and gauges? What do they look like physically? Well, if you could imagine in your mind's eye, manifest it.
they're basically just basic military grade ammunition. There's
I see. Okay, I get. Oh, okay. I'm
yeah,
with you now. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, they come right off the production line, and
I see.
either steal them, or loot them, or somehow manage to get their hands on them.
Can you buy them at like stores or anything? Or are there any kind of anything
If
like that? Or
into like Republic space, like any part of the West that is Republic controlled, they're basically sold as military surplus. But for the most part, out in the actual West, they're used only as currency. People consider them far too valuable to just shoot them. They're only used as ammunition purely for emergencies only.
hmm.
Otherwise, they're used as a currency, and they kind of like do a little bit of a dance with one another, because with most people, they're basically on a barter system, between individuals, where they only are interested in calibers or gauges their guns use. But if you're trading with someone who's incredibly well off or a merchant, they'll use a more standardized system as far as calibers and gauges go.
Hmm.
So, it's
Mhm.
going to be basically on who you're talking with that will determine on how actually valuable your currency is going to be,
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
which will definitely add a lot more situational spice to the game, because you don't know whether or not your currency is going to be worth a damn or not.
Yeah, that makes it tricky.
Oh yeah,
It's like inflation on like a massive scale, like way faster. You're like, oh crap! I thought this was gonna be worth a lot more than this. Huh?
yeah. So he's going to be like, okay, eh, the person I'm talking to, are they well off or a merchant? If not, I'm probably screwed here. Yeah.
And so let me ask you, so because you talk about it's like this Western setting that keeps getting weirder, and there's all these crazy things going on. Are there any civilized areas of the West that have been eked out of, that people managed to kind of carve out of that area?
Oh yeah, as I said, the Republic sort of has some hold
Hmm. Oh,
in,
really? Okay.
in the West. The kind of rule of thumb is if you find a rail line, there's the Republic. So if there's trains and railroads around, chances are you're pretty much in Republic controlled space. But beyond that, you're kind of touch and go as far as how civilized things are.
Right. That's fun. Oh
Oh yeah.
yeah. I definitely got. Are there saloons? I hope there's some saloons in this
Oh, of
game.
course. Well,
Oh,
you can't
good,
have
good.
the West House saloons
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
or bordellos. You know, there's going to be
True, true, true.
whorehouses around.
Oh man. Don't go spending all your money there. It's
Yeah,
it's a dangerous
don't
game.
be spending all your calibers in one place.
That's right. Uh, so I
Um,
see here we're looking at some skills now.
yep. The way how I got it set up is that you're going to choose 4 to be trained in, and two you're going to be a dunce in. I call them dunce because I thought that'd be funny. And the
Yeah.
4 you're going to be trained in, you'll gain an advantage in performing. Am I echoing?
Let me see. Not on my end.
I
I
thought
don't
I was
believe
echoing.
so.
Oh well.
Uh, do you have the YouTube video by any chance? Sometimes it'll
Mm,
give you
I got
feedback.
it. I got it up so I can read chat, but I have it on pause.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh well. Saying the 4 you're going to be trained in, you'll get advantage in performing. So you roll twice, use the higher number, and then the 2 that you're in a dunce in, you'll have disadvantage. So roll twice, take the lower result, right?
Okay, yeah.
And there's going to be some skills that are marked in with combat in parentheses, and that basically what that means they're combat related skills. If you're not trained in those, you'll get negatives for using them for being bad in the skill. And if you're bad at them, then you always act as if you rolled a natural 1 while using them. So it's basically no point in using a combat skill if you're not trained in them because you're probably always going to fail them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we got some stuff here. We have animal handling, which is about if you can basically read how animals think, taming them or being able to ride them. First aid, which is about healing people. Bootlegging, which is all about crafting stuff from anything. Be able to make weapons or tonics or
Alcohol?
alcohol.
Oh,
Yeah,
really strong brews. Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's what I'd be doing.
yeah.
I'd be, if hearing that makes me think if I would want to create like a bootlegger character if that's possible
Oh yeah,
potentially.
that is completely possible. We have stealth, which is all about sneaking around. Scavenging, which is all about looting and collecting stuff. Hunting, which is all about tracking, identifying wildlife, skinning, cooking, using a bow, and all that stuff. So hunting could also kind of sort of be a combat skill, I guess. I haven't looked at this in months, so a lot of this stuff really isn't edited. So there might be some stuff I'm just discovering now as I'm taking a closer look. We got mysticism, which is basically learning about myths, legends, superstitions, religions, stuff like that. Speechcraft was about convincing or seducing or intimidating people. Sleight of hand was about how quickly you could get your gun out, cheating at card games, picking pockets, picking locks, that kind of stuff. Music playing, which is going to be guitars, flutes, singing, stuff like that. Negotiating, which is all about compromising on a deal, getting better prices on trades, all that stuff. Basically, trying to create better outcomes. Insight, which is all about reading people. Perceptions about noticing stuff around you. Then we get into the combat stuff where we have knife play, which is all about being able to use knives and other melee weapons. Unarmed, which is about punching and kicking people. Shotguns, using shotguns. Rifles, using rifles, whether they be basic combat rifles or sniper rifles. Sidearms, which is all about pistols and sawed-off shotguns, basically anything you can wield in one hand and fire stuff. And then we have cavalry, which is about fighting while moving on a mount, whether it be horses, carriage, or even on trains. Basically, being able to fight on with using very high-moving, fast-moving stuff.
Okay.
Then we got attributes where we're going to get a lot more of the fun stuff going on, especially with the different bars that you have to balance. First of all, is there anything you want to say about the skills?
Well, I think that you got a nice balance of skills. I like the different styles and stuff you have there.
Oh yeah, and within the parentheses, not only they're signifying combat, but there's also like, hey, here's the attribute you have to use.
Right. I always love that. That's I think it's cool when the skill is linked to the attribute. I think it just makes so much more sense in my mind, at least.
Oh yeah, and there's of course, there's way more stuff using charisma than anything else, really, because charisma is a very versatile skill. Very versatile attribute.
Yeah, you gotta be a smooth talker in this game.
And so let's move around to the attributes as a natural moving point. First off, we have HP, health points. How durable you are. Take damage from combat or other situations. Upon reaching 0, you are knocked out. Upon reaching your maximum HP value in the negatives, you are dead. You regain HP by resting, eating, and being healed through medicinal methods. Upon reaching half of your max value, you can get out of the knocked out state. Every character starts off with a base of 10. I thought 10 was a kind of a good starting point. Stamina, how fit you are. It takes stamina to go on long trips, operate past your regular time of activities, and exert yourself. You lose stamina by traveling long distance, staying up without proper rest, perform strenuous activities, and fighting. You regain stamina by resting, eating, and sleeping. Every character starts off with a base of 50. Then we go to wellness. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to both love and hate. And I mean hate wellness. Which is how healthy you are. This can affect your maximum allowed HP and stamina depending on its value. You lose wellness by staying up longer without rest, catching diseases, being hydrated, or starving. Upon reaching 0, you are dead. Every character starts off with a base of 100. For every 10 away from the maximum, you lose 1 point in maximum HP and 5 points in maximum stamina. And of course, it kind of goes the other way, where if you put points into wellness, every 10 adds 1 to HP and adds 5 to maximum stamina. So, if
it kind of adds that survival element to it.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a survival element within this game.
Wow.
You have to actually play as an actual human in this world, so
Okay.
you have some limitations to think about.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the firearm skills. Something that was in. Do you have how do you handle ammunition and bullet count in this game? In terms of, do you have to keep track of how many bullets you're using before you reload, that kind of thing?
Yep.
Nice.
This is a thing I haven't gotten to yet, because last thing I worked on was coming up with weapons and items, and I haven't really figured out the stats for the weapons yet and what they're all about. But it's going to be within the stat sheet of the weapons that will say like how many times, like what their clip size is, or how many bullets they can fire before reloading. And then
I get that.
And it's going to be within its own thing within the character sheet, where it's like you keep track of your ammunition, both military grade and put together ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have strength. It's about how strong your characters are, how their feats of strength and athleticism, be able to do physically straining activities, and affects how much stuff they can carry. For every 5 points past 10, so basically once you get to 10 is sort of like the baseline. For every 5 beyond that, you get a +1 to strength related rolls, and every 10 points past 10 increases your physical attack damage by 1. Then we have accuracy, which is all about how accurately you can you hit. Basically, going to affect your aiming. Every 5 past 10 gives you a +1 to your ability to hit your target with
Damn,
whether it be a
dude.
gun, a bow, or a melee weapon. Accuracy is a universal thing.
So that's really interesting. Man, because I've never seen a system where the survivability affected the attribute so much. It's really interesting. It
Oh
really
yeah,
adds a level of difficulty, and kind of you have to really be thinking about this. You can't just let certain things go necessarily.
yeah. I try to make every decision as worthwhile as possible.
Mhm. That's cool. I like that. I like that element.
hmm
It adds an element of danger to it. And
Now,
as it should. I mean, it's a wild west out there, right? So it
oh
should be
yeah,
dangerous.
if you're not careful, literally everything will try to kill you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Then we have endurance, where for every 5 points past 10, you get +5 to HP, +10 to stamina, and +25 to wellness. Then you also get a +1 to rolls to resist negative effects.
Hmm.
So endurance is going to be pretty important. Then we have intelligence, where every 5 points past 10 will give you a +1 in activities that require an intelligence roll. Wisdom is the same thing. Every 5 past 10 gives you +1 to every thing that as you make a wisdom check. Reflexes is interesting because with every 5 points past 10, you'll get a +1 to your initiative or anything that requires reflex to do. And every 10 points past 10 will give you a +1 to your defense. And we have charisma. Every 5 points past 10 will give you a +1 to anything that requires your charisma to have something happen. And every 10 points past 10 gives a +5% to selling prices and -5% to buying prices. So yeah, charisma can actually affect how well you can bargain.
Hmm. Yeah,
Now,
that's funny. It's like you have really bad charisma, and you're like, "Here, buy this," and they're like, "That's not worth anything." You're like, "Yeah, sure it is. It's awesome." Huh?
no, it's not. And then finally, we have luck, where every
Hmm.
5 points past 10 will give you +1 with checks that test how lucky you are. And every 10 points past 10 also decreases the minimum value of your weapon's critical strike range by 1. So yeah,
Hmm.
higher luck means you can crit a lot more often.
Okay, nice.
So very much like in a Wild West, luck is pretty important. I would say that every attribute is on equal level of importance in its own way.
Oh, nice. Yeah, there's not like any toss away ones, really.
Yeah, you're going to be sacrificing something. Though I guess if
Mm.
you're not playing a character that relies on intelligence skills or wisdom skills, you could kind of skip them, you know?
You can get away with it
Yeah.
a little bit.
So, anything you want to talk about with these outside of you saying that you really like how every stat kind of affects something?
Well, let's see. Uh, how are the how do you kind of go about choosing your points? Is it a points by system, or is it a randomized roll system? How do you do that? How do you get to choose it?
You can kind of do either. If I'm right, the character sheet goes a little bit into how you can do it, but as well
Mm-hmm.
as that, what we're going to get into next is going to be the classes and the backgrounds, and they can actually affect how your starting attributes work out. That's
Okay, yeah, yeah. I was
they
looking at
got their
the
favorites.
classes over there. Those look pretty interesting. I
Oh
have
yeah,
some of them on the side.
yeah. You can kind of see the outline right here.
Hmm.
So I guarantee that the first class we're going to get to is the cowboy.
Oh yes, and I'm sure that's gonna be a very popular one. I know a
One,
certain creator who might really be into that.
oh, yeah. Once just humble cattle drivers and defenders, helping the ranches not be robbed by outlaws. There's greater money and fame to be made in the unruly West. Able to live off the land, fend for themselves, and able to take and deal a beating. The cowboy or cowgirl is a staple in this lawless land. They'll be the first ones into a gunfight and the last ones out. Almost able to brush off blows from a brawl in the saloon and not even wince at getting shot. Preferred attributes, strength and endurance. Preferred roles, tank, damage dealer. Preferred weapons, knives, shotguns, revolvers. Preferred skills, animal handling, hunting, and any combat-related skill. Bonuses, plus 5 HP, plus 10 stamina, plus 5 strength, plus 5 endurance. These guys are decked out to be the tanks of the group, or the heavy hitters. And of course, I haven't really thought too much about these classes so far. I only have their level 1 attributes. I mean their level 1 abilities, and I got 5 for each one. The only one that's kind of special in that way is the gunslinger, but that's mostly because with gunslinger you could choose to be a one gun preferred or dual wielding preferred. But it's still a basic concept. How I got the cowboy set up here with its abilities. Excuse me. There's a brace. Instead of moving or taking a shot, you instead stay in one place. This will make it easier for enemies to hit you, but you receive half damage. In return, you get +4 to accuracy and -5 to the minimum value needed for a critical strike for your attack in the next turn. For every attack you receive while bracing, you must pay 10 stamina. If you wind up losing all your stamina while bracing, you lose the accuracy and critical bonus.
So is that permanent stamina loss or is that temporary?
That's permanent until you rest or eat and regain the stamina.
Okay.
Everything that costs stamina is permanent until you're able to recuperate.
Recoup that. Okay, interesting.
Next, we have Power Strike. In a brawl or knife fight, you sacrifice your ability to move around to spend both actions to do an attack that deals extra damage. While doing Power Strike, you can roll your weapon damage 3 times and add the 2 highest damages. You will have to pay 15 stamina. Second Wind. This is basically, you can only use it once per encounter, but you regain 2d10 stamina. Natural Driver. This basically means you can use the cavalry skill without using up your trio skill slot. So basically, you just get cavalry for free. So you can.
And you know what? I bet you could also use that to, like, say you wanted to have like a cattle ranch as part of your backstory. I bet that would help with that as well. I would imagine.
Yep, exactly. Because like you're a cowboy or cowgirl, you pretty much were defending cattle before you decide to go out on your own. That's where you kind of get all your skills from.
That's cool. Yeah.
Then we have Doctrine. You have to pay 15 stamina to this. You can only use it once per encounter, but you can attempt to heal yourself for 2d6 health. It's not as good as an actual doctor, but hey, when you're in the middle of a fight, it's the best you can do. And it's recommended you use the ability in cover because when you do this, you basically use up your acting action. Because with how this works, you have a movement action, then you have an acting action. So you can move and act, and when you act, you got to use an ability, use an item, or do an attack. So basically, if you're using this while you're out in the open, you're basically, just standing out in the open healing yourself. You're kind of an open target to get shot at. So it's definitely recommended you get into cover.
Yeah. Do you have a cover system in this?
There's definitely a cover system where where you go into a cover, and depending on what it is, you could be fully protected, or you could be half or quarter protected or whatever, where something will take damage for you, and it has its own life bar. So you basically have like an extended life bar depending on what you're using.
That's cool.
And if something only like half covers you, let's say, so it takes like 50% of the damage, and you take 50% of the damage. So So you're always going to get a benefit if you're taking cover. So I can imagine there's going to be a lot of people, just like out in the Wild West, there'll be a lot of people getting into cover and just taking pot shots at each other. Then we have the gunslinger here, which is going to be all about, hey, I'm here to to kill people and make a name for myself with my gunslinging, right?
Sorry about that.
I always sort of love the flavor text I have with this stuff. The quickest hands this side of the Great Ravine. The poor bastard would even know what hit them. Able to get their guns out of their holsters, fire a couple of rounds, and then put the guns right back before the son of a bitch at the wrong end of the iron slice can cry out for his mama and hit the ground. You'll never want to get on the bad side of a gunslinger when their trigger fingers get to itching and just waiting for an excuse. Their preferred attributes are reflexes and accuracy, preferred role, entirely damage dealer, preferred weapons, any one-handed gun, preferred skills, sleight of hand, sidearms, perception, and insight. Bonuses: plus 15 to stamina, plus 5 accuracy, plus 5 reflexes. Now, here's a little bit of their level 1 abilities where you can have a custom holster, which requires them to use only one sidearm, and basically what that is, you're always assumed to go first when combat starts. Only need to roll initiative against other enemies with a similar ability. So basically what that means, if you're only using one gun and you take this, you're so quick with your gun, you always just go first on the initiative. You don't even need to roll for it. You're just that quick. You've been trained to get your gun out of the drop of the hat, right? Or you can take twice the chance, which requires you to have 2 sidearms. Where, what is it? Oh yeah, when rolling initiative, you roll for both of your guns. If both guns are above 11, then you can use both of them ahead of everyone regardless of the order on the first round. After the first round, you take the number directly in the middle of your 2 values. So it's either you go first all the time, or you have a chance to get 2 free shots and then have a higher chance at having a higher number on the initiative order.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yep. Then we have dedicated sights. Requires only 1 sidearm. When using sidearms, the minimum requirement needed to get a critical strike is lowered by 5. So basically lowers your critical strike range by 5 because, you're better at aiming with your one gun. So you basically make it try count as much as possible. Or you can have ambidextrousness, which again requires 2 sidearms. Use your time perfecting the art of using both of your weapons at the same time. Without any drawbacks, you can use your acting action by firing both of your guns at 1 or 2 targets. So basically either having a greater chance to doing maximum amount of damage with your one gun, or you can use both of your guns to double damage on one person or hit 2 people at the exact same time. Then we have a tactical dive, where you're allowed to use a movement action to both move and get into cover at the same time. You can use twice per encounter, but you have to pay 25 stamina. Then we have quick hands, where you're naturally skilled in sleight of hand without needing to be trained in it. And then we also have a duelist. The whole point of you being out in the West was to make a name for yourself as the baddest, most gun-toting son of a bitch out there. And this ability will help you make that name for yourself. When you earn folklore, fame, and infamy from winning duels with guns, you get double the earned amount, which we'll get into after classes if you're still around. Because folklore and dueling are 2 things all in of themselves.
I got about 20 more minutes or so. Does that sound like we should be able to get to that, or?
Probably, and even when you're gone, I could probably still go on for a little bit longer. Got some people in the chat.
Cool. Yeah, I'll see if I can. If I have to go, I'll definitely jump in the chat as well.
All right, neato. Anything you want to say about the two classes that we went over?
Nothing. Just really, I'm enjoying everything so far. I really love the setting and how it's well so far. It seems it's very. I'm actually very curious because it seems like it's very grounded, but I'm curious if there's a fantastical element to the game at all.
Not in the
Or is it
sense
pretty
of
grounded? Is it more like a true traditional Western?
the comic is going to be kind of more mystical in the
Hmm.
sense, and
Oh
but but
wait a second. I think you're getting ahead of yourself here.
yeah, I know,
You didn't mention that before.
but but in the game, it's a little bit more tame. Things haven't had the time to settle in and get really weird, but
Hmm.
a lot more of the weird stuff kind of gets more into with the creatures you have to fight and the
Okay.
landscape
Yeah.
itself kind of screwing with people.
Oh yeah, that sounds fun. I like that idea of like even the landscape and is out to get you and kind of mess with you.
Yeah, get into the comic whenever I get around to finishing that and getting an artist and possibly a publisher for that. That's where, and since it's like a couple like way into the future of this, that's where things are going to get
Right.
really
That's
weird.
right. You did mention that you were going to be doing that earlier. I didn't realize you were it was going to be direct. I guess for some reason I didn't realize it was going to be directly tied in with the game so much like that.
Oh yeah.
That's cool. I like that idea of having a comic and a game kind of set within the same universe. That's fun.
Yeah, I was making this, and then when I was thinking about a comic to do, because I was getting really involved with the indie comic scene, I'm like, it'd be kind of cool if I did my own comic. Then also, I
Mm.
was on this, I'm like, hey, a comic out of this.
That's a cool idea, yeah. Because
Yeah.
I could totally see getting into playing the game and picking up the comic as well and kind of taking both in the parallel, you know.
Hmm.
You get more out of it that way.
Right on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah,
Next,
so the next one is the medic, I guess then?
yep, right here with the medic. They're definitely going to be the healer of the team. Their preferred attributes is intelligence and wisdom. Preferred role, healer, support. Preferred weapons, shotguns and sidearms. Preferred skill, shotguns, first aid, bootlegging, and scavenging. Bonuses, plus 25 wellness, plus 5 intelligence, plus 5 wisdom. Here we have a stable. I'm going to kind of blaze through these a little bit quicker than I did with the past two, but you kind of get the idea of what these classes are going to be involved with.
Mm-hmm.
Here we have a. Wait a minute, actually, just noticed something, huh? That is actually kind of weird. Supposed to be. That's supposed to be like that. That is very weird. I don't know how that happened. Oh well.
That's funny.
But anyway, so we got stabilize where you spend 10 stamina, and that'll basically, you basically actually what's this? Oh yeah, basically what this does, it kind of prevents your allies from bleeding out and losing HP if they're knocked out. So you kind of prevent them from dying. But problem with that is you're basically just staying put until you can heal them properly, right?
It's not a permanent fix.
Yeah.
Just
Uh,
just a patchwork.
and every time you use the ability, you have to pay 10 stamina, so you kind of heal them as quickly as possible.
Okay, yeah.
Then we have medicinal knowledge, which uh, with this is kind of like an improved version of bootlegging, but it's for developing different types of healing stuff like healing bombs, painkillers, or even developing poisons. But you
Mm.
just have to pass an intelligence check, and you basically just make it. It's basically just a better version of bootlegging, but for medicinal related stuff.
I could see that, yeah.
Mhm. Triage, where you pay 15 stamina, and for 1d4 rounds, you can heal an ally for 3d4 HP. So basically, this is where you're going to try and heal your allies as best as possible. License of practice, that's where you get first aid for free, the first aid skill training for free. or you can get the medicine pouch, which basically means you're going to have like a pouch where you store basically all the stuff you need for healing. So it just makes it harder for medicinal related stuff to get stolen, and it'll always be on you, so you always have them handy. Then we have here the rifleman, which is all about using rifles to kill people from a distance with pinpoint accuracy.
Very
Their
nice.
their preferred attributes is accuracy and intelligence. Their preferred role is damage dealer and support. Their preferred weapons are rifles and bows. Preferred skills are rifles, hunting, stealth, and perception. Their bonuses are plus 15 to stamina, plus 5 to accuracy, plus 5 to intelligence. They get a calculated strike, where instead of luck, they can use their intelligence to decrease the minimum value needed to land a critical strike with their weapon. So basically, kind of replace their luck for intelligence, so they don't need as many stat balances, right? They don't need to balance as many attributes. Basic breathing. You pay 20 stamina, and every round afterwards, pay 10 stamina. But while you do that, you get +1 to your accuracy roll against the target and -1 to the mini value needed to land a critical strike. You can only use this ability once per encounter. But actually, does this stack? It does actually say if this stacks or not. Maybe just states a. I think my idea behind this was that for every time you hold it, you basically add +1 to your accuracy and -1 to your critical strike chance, and it kind of just blows when you fire the gun, right? And you can only use the ability once per encounter. Then you have a custom scope. Therefore, you have a custom-made scope to fill out your niche, your chosen niche. You suffer no negative penalties from the range of your target. So basically, if you take this ability, your gun basically has a no effective range. You can fire from like miles away and be perfectly fine. Out of range, out of mind. Okay, so this basically means you get stealth, the stealth skill for free. And then Overwatch. Now, this one's going to be kind of interesting. You pay 15 stamina, and when you do, you sacrifice your ability to move or act. You instead prop up your rifle and scope the scene. While facing a direction, you get to keep an eye on all known enemies. If they spend an action point that isn't getting into cover, you get to punish them by having an attack of opportunity with +5 to accuracy.
Wow.
This ability is basically the marksman saying, the rifleman saying, "Hey, who gave you permission to move?"
Man, that sounds like it's gonna be a really useful one.
Yep. Then we have the peddler, which is the merchant of the group. Yeah, you get to play an actual merchant class here.
That's a little different, huh?
Oh yeah.
That's
And
cool.
also,
I like that.
they also tend to be the leaders of the group, which is also kind of interesting.
Makes sense that high charisma and wisdom there.
Yep. Charisma and wisdom. Preferred role is support. They can use any weapons. The preferred weapons is any, really. The preferred skills are speechcraft, negotiating, insight, and bootlegging. Their bonuses plus 10 to charisma. Oh, this is a typo. +5 to intelligence and +5 to wisdom. You see, as we go on, I'll learn more about this game and how absolutely
Right?
terrible.
Yeah, it's like it develops itself as you go.
Yep. For their level 1 abilities, they have Silver Tongue, which means to get the negotiating skill for free. Ooh, excuse me. They got Expert Diffuser. You get to make a charisma check to defuse a tense situation before it becomes a shootout, or might even be able to end a shootout depending on what happens. You can only use this ability once per day. This really means to get like an advantage with charisma, 1 foot in. Sometimes you gotta know the right people to get what you want. Knowing this, you get to have a contact with the criminal underworld. This can help you sell hot items into the black market, or even buy rare items on the down low. Or it can even get you information about the happenings in the network. So this basically means you're kind of, doing some illegal stuff.
Mm.
Making the wares. If you take up bootlegging, picking medicine, food, clothing, amenities, or weapons, you get to take advantage in making them. For you to keep track, having bootlegging gives you advantage already, so that means you get to roll 3 times and take the best one. So basically, you're just a better bootlegger. You get to make the best stuff more often. Then we have my personal favorite, Bootstrap Ruler. There are benefits that come from being the smarmy one in the group and using your cleverness to take your advantage for a living. Peddlers tend to be the leader of any group, and this ability makes it show. When you give commands to an ally and they adhere to it, they take your wisdom modifier and add it to their rolls if they try and accomplish your command. However, if they refuse to do it, they'll lose any command benefits for an in-game week. You can do this as many times as you want. You have to pay 20 stamina for every command. So basically, if you take this, you are making yourself the leader of the group. Whether the rest of the group like it or not, you're trying to become the leader. How do you feel about that one? Kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, it's a kind of a different take on it, huh?
Oh yeah, I always like games where they actually have a class that is very much the leader of the group and has leadership mechanics. It can definitely put some texture and some complexity to the group dynamic. If there's someone who is, without a doubt, the built-in leader of the group and make decisions for the group, it can, can add some dichotomy there. You can make some relationships.
Now, do you is this a game where you encourage heavy role play? Would you say?
Oh, definitely.
Nice.
So that would mean there will probably be some characters who, especially out in the Wild West, there could be some characters who don't really take to leadership. Then some people have problems with authority.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's for sure.
And next we have what I feel is going to be everyone's favorite.
Oh my God! Really, the Rambler?
The Rambler class. This is what I call Bard times 20 with bullshit. I also kind of like the description I have for this. The world is for any to go out and roam it. Seize the day. Even a dangerous place like the Wild Frontier has many sights to be seen, many things that must be done, and you just so happen to be the right person to do it. It won't be easy. Nothing worth having rarely ever is. But you'll be fine. You made it this far after all, right? Whether it be with your impressive wit, your charming smile, or just dumb luck, you'll make it here or die trying. Preferred attributes, straight up luck.
Oh my God.
Any. Preferred weapons, any. Preferred skills, mysticism, sleight of hand, music playing, speechcraft. Bonuses, plus 10 to luck, plus 30 to distribute to any other stats.
It's like your wild card guy.
Oh, he definitely is. Level 1 abilities. Lucky SOB. No matter what happens, no matter what seems to happen, Lady Luck happens to smile upon your sorry ass more times than really is necessary. While others get to replace a bad roll with a luck roll once a day, you get to do it 3 times.
Jesus, dude.
Performer of the ages. The loneliness of the West can really get to you, but if you got the right tools, well, it can be manageable. That's why you took up the instrument and play all day long. You take up the music playing skill without taking up any of your trained skill slots. So, like all the other ones where you get a skill for free, Ramblers get music playing for free. Bit of a dabbler. there's a lot of time out in the West, and you got to spend it doing something. You spent that time picking up a new skill or making sure you aren't terrible at everything. Pick between gaining an additional train skill slot or taking away a dunce skill slot. So basically, instead of having 4 to 2, you can have 5 to 2 or 4 to 1 with the skills. It's kind of your choice there. Gotta do it all. Living out in the West gives one the ability to pick up some extra talent. You pick this up more than anyone else who focused too much on hard set goals to diversify themselves. Taking up this ability allows you to take an ability from another class of your choice. So basically,
Damn.
pick this one up, you can go back to either cowboy, gunslinger, rifleman, medic, or peddler, and take any skill, take any ability from them. Just whatever one takes your.
Jeez. That's cool. I like that. That's a sneaky skill to use.
Yep. And we have divine intervention, which requires you to take up the mysticism skill.
Hmm.
Sometimes wits, charm, or luck just ain't enough to save your sorry hide. You need a little extra help every once in a while. Doing a prayer to whatever you consider a deity, you can call for a little extra help, or maybe trick yourself into performing better. After spending 15 stamina to feverishly beg for assistance, you gain a +2 modifier to any stat of your choice.
Hmm.
So basically, you get a temporary boost for doing, I guess, what you consider a prayer. Now,
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Yeah.
now
Buffer almost.
Rambler, it's going to be a lot of people's favorite because of the levels of bullshittery you can do with this class.
Oh, I can already imagine. Like you could be like pull off some really crazy shit with that luck. I imagine.
This is a class where it's like, you know what? I'm just going to put all my hands into luck and see what happens.
This
No goals to be met. I'm just here for the ride.
is the kind of guy, you can be like, I can already imagine. I'd try stuff like jumping off of trains that are like moving and doing all sorts of crazy acrobatic moves and.
End up perfectly surviving, and you only did it just to see where the hell you end up from there.
That's wild.
So, out of all the classes we talked about, which am I right? Is Rambler your favorite?
I'd say Rambler is definitely the most entertaining for sure. But for me, I would lean for myself. I would lean towards the Rifleman. In particular, pick that one up for myself.
Sniper of the group, huh?
What's that?
You'd be more of the sniper of the group, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that. That's a fun. I like the different the Overwatch was a nice feature.
I was going to say, let me guess, it was the Overwatch that got you.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
You punish people for moving without your permission.
Yeah. They must be punished. Oh man, but no, that's cool. It's a good variety. It's really I like that.
Oh yeah,
and a nice mix of action classes and support classes.
Oh, definitely. I'm more of a support class player myself, so I'd like to make
Nice.
actually, mean something. They're actually worth the damn to play. They actually
Yeah,
do.
that's awesome. Yeah, I've always that's all. I think that's always such a good way to go about it because a lot of times they're just tacked on in certain games, and it just doesn't feel like you're really getting to contribute in a meaningful way. So when it's done right like that, I think it is a lot more fun to play those support classes.
Oh yeah, you can definitely do a lot more shenanigans, or even actually dictate what even happens inside of the battle itself. If you deck yourself out for that, depending on the game.
Nice.
There's always like the controller classes in D&D where you're like, hey, I get to put detriments on my enemies and buff my allies at any time I want. I decide who has the upper hand here.
Neostar Productions in the chat says Rambler sounds like the Akira Yuki of this game. Hard to master, but when you do, you're practically unstoppable.
Where's that from? That sounds familiar.
I wish I knew the reference myself. If maybe you could let us know in the chat. I feel like I should though. Yeah.
The next we have background, so it's most about the
Wait. Sorry. Virtual Fighter.
oh really?
It looks like he's a part of the game series Virtua Fighter.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, go ahead though.
Next we have the background, so it's kind of like dictate either the past of your characters or what jobs they act like what their official jobs are in the West. Because you got the classes, but here's kind of like how they make their living.
Okay.
Here
Kind
we
of
have
flavor a little bit.
oh yeah, but they also add some stuff in.
Oh,
Like
okay.
here we have the bounty hunter, which of course you gotta have a bounty hunter. Here, the benefits of being a bounty hunter is that you naturally gain double the reward amount of any bounty, which is stackable with other bounty related benefits. The bounty hunter also gains +3 damage to bounty targets. Now, what I mean by bounty related benefits, you got your dual purpose alive or dead, right? Where base prices, where like if you look at a wanted poster and they got the price, it's always assumed that's what it is for dead, right? But if you capture them alive, then it's worth double. It's worth double the amount for alive. So if you're also a bounty hunter and you capture them alive, then it's worth double that amount. So you're always guaranteed a pretty big payoff if you're a bounty hunter.
Yeah, that's that's pretty nice. Nice benefit, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and again, you also get +3 to damage to bounty targets, so that's not something to sneeze at either.
No way.
But the detriment to that is that if you introduce yourself as a bounty hunter, most towns will throw you out as bounty hunters are rarely seen as anything more than killers for hire. So they're like, hey, you being here ruins the image of this town. Get the hell out, right? So you also have a natural -5 to charisma at all times. Not many people trust you since you're just a killer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. You're basically a less refined assassin to most people.
Ooh, I see a lawman down there.
Yeah,
That's
we'll
gonna be a
get
popular one, I bet.
here we have the smuggler. You naturally gain the stealth skill without using a trained skill slot. So basically you get stealth for free, kind of like how the rifleman does. You also get a stacked advantage in trying to hide items either on your person or elsewhere. You also gain the ability to use negotiating to establish contacts either in the government or the criminal underworld. So this is kind of where you're like, hey, I can sneak anything into anywhere and I could be friends with anybody. However, the detriment is while you do have a foot in the door on both sides, sometimes the underlings aren't exactly caught up to speed. If you aren't careful, you can be figured out really quickly at checkpoints, so you'll constantly be on thin ice while on the job. You also gain double price on your head on bounties. So that's sort of like if you do gain a bounty in the middle of a game, your bounty is worth double.
Wow.
You're gonna have a lot more people going after you.
Oh boy.
So don't get caught.
Yeah, seriously.
Now the lawman. Now lawman is kind of interesting because rangers are a thing in this game. Now how rangers are, they're basically either retired or discharged, whether honorable or dishonorable discharged military officials of the Republic who just kind of get rehired to just go out into the West and travel around and make sure the laws of the Republic are being administered correctly, right? Your benefits, you gain 200 folklore, all of it fame. This is enough to give you a moniker and a symbol to be known by. Let me fix that.
Well, sorry I have to say I do have to get going. But man, I really love this setting. I think you've done created something really really cool here. So I'd love to. I don't know where you are. Where you're at with the status of the game, of course. But if you ever are looking for some beta testers, I'd love to get the Wiki guys to play a game.
To give it a shot.
Yeah, that would be so fun. I've used that website Roll20 in the past. I don't know if you're familiar with Roll20.com.
Oh yeah, I've used it a few times myself.
Pretty good. It's a pretty good system. I like it, and so it'd be cool to maybe if you're interested, we could talk about maybe set something like that up.
Possibly.
Yeah,
I could probably put a link to this document into the Wicked chat, so
that'd be
y'all
fun.
can
Yeah.
look into it because I've been looking for an excuse to get back to working on this.
Nice. Well, that would definitely be a good one for sure. Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and maybe I can come on again sometime. It was a great show. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
Um,
possibly. I could probably look to y'all and possibly Bob Jones again if
oh yeah,
any more interview guests just don't make it.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, we always appreciate. We're always around. So if you ever need us, just let us know. And good luck with the rest of the show. And thanks everyone who joined in the chat. And I will talk to you guys later.
All right, and thank you and Matt for coming along. I hope
Oh,
yeah,
no problem.
of the both of you have a good one. I'll probably be
Thanks.
going on for a little bit, so if you want to catch up more about this game, just be sure to watch the video later.
Oh, well, I'm gonna be jump. I even though I have to go, I'm gonna jump in the chat because I want to hear the rest about what you got to say, especially that outlaw down there. I'm curious about him for sure.
That guy's kind of like the direct opposite of the lawman. As
Oh yeah, I can already see the epic clashes between the lawmen and the outlaws. That's gonna be epic, man. All
all
right,
right.
dude. Well, I'll catch you later.
Have a good one. I'll be seeing you in the chat after I'm done looking over this stuff because I'm probably not gonna be seeing the chat for a good bit. I might duck in and out, but it's gonna be hard to kind of go between the two.
No, I get that. Yeah, especially with the screen share on. Yeah, that makes it tough.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks.
Everybody
I'll talk to you soon on
there,
there.
yeah. I'll be seeing you. I'll be seeing you there. Have a good one. So everyone else in the chat, sorry if it's going to take a while for me to interact with y'all, but that's just the way this stuff goes. So let's see what everyone's saying. Oh yeah, Bounty Hunter Baby. Man, Gunslinger Bounty Hunter sounds like my favorite combination. Yep, I kind of see that being the thing, Neostar. I kind of figured that would be. But let's kind of get back into it. Now say with the Lawman. The benefits of being a lawman is that you get 200 folklore, all of it fame. The difference between fame and infamy we'll get to later, but this is enough to give you a moniker and a symbol to be known by. With all that comes with that, you also get special privileges and treatment when in a Republic-friendly town. So that means if you're in a town, whether within Republic space or even outside of it, but do want to be a part of the Republic, you get favorited stuff. However, the detriments is that you start off with a hefty manhunt prize with some of the criminal underworld, and if you get caught doing any criminal activity, it's a scandal no one will forget, and you can't pay it off either. So that means if you're a lawman and you do illegal activities, you lose all benefits of being a lawman. You are a wanted fugitive, and everyone's going to basically gun for you down as you're basically a traitor to the state there. So, that it's kind of a high-end detriment there. Just keep your nose clean, you'll be fine. But that one moment you get caught, oh, you are screwed for corruption. Next, we have the Caravanneers, which is basically out in the West, you're gonna have people that go into caravans. They're basically nomads. They don't really have permanent homes. They stick together in wagon trains. They go all over the place, putting supplies all over the place. They're basically the lifeblood of the West. Before the rail line, there's the Caravanneers. They make sure everyone is as supplied as possible. The benefits of being a Caravanneer is that you start off with a caravan carriage for your journey, along with the horses needed and enough items to fill up half of its loading weight. And while working within a crew of allies, you gain +5 to all stats. So basically, you get a free carriage, free horses to draw that carriage, enough items to fill that carriage halfway up, and so long as you are with your group or with a group, you get +5 to all stats. You are very much a crew orientated person, right? You got to be within a group, because if you do not because you do not do well without friends around. You take a -5 to all stats if you do not have an ally near you. It also seems to always be painstakingly obvious that you are an experienced cavernier with some valuables about them, which comes with its own run-ins with unsavory types. What that basically means is that with how the system works, it takes a while to get from place to place, so there's going to be a luck roll to see if bad stuff happens. Whether you get attacked by creatures or you suffer an outlaw raid. So basically what that kind of means that during luck checks, you take a disadvantage as a Caravanserai because you have basically double the chance of being raided by bandits. So you're always got to be on the lookout for being, stuck up. And speaking of, we have the Outlaw, which is, the opposite of the Lawman, where, your whole thing is breaking the law. You got a good foot in the door with the criminal underworld, which translates to a contact there. So basically, you have a free contact within the criminal underworld, and this also means you gain special treatment when in towns that don't look favorably on the Republic. So if you're in a town in the West that hates the Republic, you basically get heralded as a hero there. You also get typical bonuses that comes with having a moniker and a symbol. Now the detriments, you gain 200 folklore, all of it infamy. That means you gain a substantial bounty at the courtesy of the fine folks of the Republic. It also means you're pretty stuck in the criminal underworld, and no one will ever let you escape without giving you hell. So that basically means if you try to go clean, they'll kill you. They will hunt you down and kill you. You cannot escape the criminal underworld. You are done. And then finally, we have the Gambler. Now, I have a feeling Ramblers and Gamblers is going to be a very, very common combination because of what Gamblers do. Benefits. You gain the ability of One Up the Sleeve, which allows you to store any natural 20 you happen to roll and take a regular success instead. You also gain a suit that gives you +5 to your charisma and allows you to store more items. So that means if you roll a natural 20 but don't want to use it for that one thing, you can just take that natural 20, use it for something else, and you just do a regular success instead, and you can basically use that one natural 20 to anything that you want, if you prefer it. Which basically means you basically just meddling around with more luck. And of course, you get the suit, which allows you to do +5 to charisma and allows you to have even more items on you at any given time. Detriments. You tend to be overly flashy without any sense of subtlety, causing stealth to be a dunce skill naturally without needing to take up a dunce skill slot. So if you're a gambler, you're just horrible at stealth. You cannot do stealth at all. Also, you must do a roll upon creation without any luck or luck-themed abilities to affect it. This roll will determine your reputation at saloons and how your typical barkeep will treat you. So if you roll high, barkeeps will look at you and say, "Hey, that's a guy that's going to reel in some money. People are going to want to beat this guy at games. He's going to work the crowds. He's going to draw in some people that'll spend money." Or you can roll low and say, "Hey, this guy is a freaking thief that's going to steal all the money before I get any. We got to kick this guy out." So yeah, there's that. As much as I love being a lawman, I kind of like the vigilante aspect of being a bounty hunter. Yep, there's going to be some different aesthetics that will be people's different choices. There are some pretty reasonable Class pros and cons. That's what I thought. Wheeling, dealing, rambler, gambler. Yep. As I said, I kind of figure people are going to kind of favor Rambler and Gambler as a combination. That's going to be an interesting campaign if every person is a Rambler and a Gambler. Ooh, the items and equipment. Now, I haven't really finished this up. Like here, we have, the weapons here, which, I got basically a descriptive name and what their calibers and gauges are to kind of like based off what their damages are going to be like. Got some bows. Just some stuff to think about that I need to get into. Got some notes here about gauges are whole numbers, therefore they're huge money. Haven't gotten into clothing quite yet. I'll need to get into that as much as I need to get into what the weapons are going to be like. But here is a little bit of the items, which I think is going to be kind of interesting because the consumables are interesting. I need to think up the prices for them. But these are kind of like temporary modifiers. Here we have coffee. Takes away 20 from max stamina until next time to rest, but gives you 20 temporary stamina. So if you like take this like in the morning, sure, you'll get like, my stamina is like 50 when you start out. So it'll knock you down to 30, but you'll have 70. So while your maximum stamina, you got the infamous caffeine crash. You have 30 to your maximum stamina, but you have 70 at that moment. So you got higher stamina at the time, but you have lesser recover. Sort of like how coffee works with the caffeine and sugar crash. We have the cigarette pack. Each one is 10 cigarettes. You smoke them for 7 minutes. Takes away 10 from wellness, but gives +2 modifier to charisma when trying to intimidate. And you also have a chance to find a cigarette card, which are collectibles, which, if you have a full collection, which I need to think about, you can get some pretty good money out of that. Cigars. Varies in time to smoke, usually an hour. That's going to depend on the cigar, what you're doing. Takes away 15 from wellness, but gives +4 modifier to charisma when trying to charm. So, I imagine a lot of people, depending on what they are, can pick and choose between we want to do a cigarette or a cigar. Then we have the different liquors, which are all interesting. We have Ironheart Beer, which again is a beer, gives you 10 temporary HP. Dark Horse Dark Liquor gives 25 temporary stamina. Strong Arms Mighty Bourbon, +2 temporary modifier to strength. Sure Shot Whiskey, +2 modifier temporary mod to accuracy. Pussycat Spice Rum, +2 to reflexes. Sturdy Mountain Vodka, +2 to endurance. University's Choice Scotch, +2 to intelligence. Sears Brew Cider, +2 to wisdom. Noble Danny's Wine, +2 to charisma. Lady Luck's Chosen Moonshine, +2 to luck. So yeah, you got different types of alcohols, of course. These are more your high-end, top-quality alcohols. You got your regular alcohols, which don't really do anything but just get you drunk for cheaper. Then we got some more consumables down here. We got the powder hard candy pellets. Get 5 pellets a pack. They give you +5 stamina, +5 temporary HP. Fun fact, I kind of based this item off of an item from Red Dead Redemption I kind of saw, which is the cocaine chewing gum. I just made it powder hard candy pellets. So they're basically, like cocaine pellets. I thought that'd be kind of funny. Then we have chewing reed grass. You get 3 chews a container. And what that basically does while you're chewing them, you get it halves the time required to be fully rested when resting. So basically you chew these up and it takes half the time to do a rest. So you can rest up your abilities quicker. Now we get here into the character sheets. Let me make this look a bit better. Now, character sheets are kind of interesting. How I got the whole thing set up here. You got your name, you get the moniker if applicable for those who need another name, symbol if applicable, which basically means you get a universally recognized symbol for your character, so people find that out. They figure out who you are just by looking at it, depending on how famous or infamous you are. Sex, male or female, standard. Age, how long you survived. Basically, how old your character is. You got the class, got the race. Appearance, how your character looks. You can do it all through text or through a picture. History, your character's history, their personality. Folklore, how much fame you managed to gather while drifting. Basically, your character's fame, how famous they are. Then we have fame and infamy, which is kind of like a split. Like folklore is going to be the combination of fame and infamy. And basically, fame is folklore points that are benevolent or neutral. They have infamy, which are points that are dastardly, fitting for a low life. So basically, if you do good things or neutral things, you get fame. If you're evil, you get infamy. So, that kind of like balances itself out there. But you combine both of them together, you get your folklore, which determines how famous you are again. Down here, we get kind of like the currency. We get your military ammunition, which is your currency and emergency stash. Because again, military ammunition deals more damage and pierces through armor and cover. But they're more useful as currency because they're kind of hard to come by. Notes. You can only use these when you're in Republic space to use them instead of military grade ammunition, but they're basically useless everywhere. But hey, maybe you can use them to start a fire. Bounties are kind of interesting in the sense that they kind of work like folklore. It's basically kind of like how much money, how the price is on your head. Higher the price, the more likely bounty hunters and lawmen will be after you. Gets increased with infamy and decreased by fame. That's kind of where that works in. I need to put in another thing in there to account for something else, which we'll get into. Your level, you start off at level 1, very basic. Progress. Now, this is actually kind of interesting because progress determines how you level up. The number of progress points you gathered. Level 2 requires 25 points. Level 3 requires 50. Level 4 requires 100. And it just keeps doubling up. You earn points by progressing in the story of the game, continuing your character's personal arc, and completing side objectives along the way. Side objectives give you 5 points. Character arc accomplishments gives you 15 points. Story progression gives you 25 points. The only one that changes as you progress in levels are side objective points, point gains, which is multiplied by half character level. So basically, levels 1 through 3 is 5 times 1. So again, that's 5. Levels 4 and 5 is 5 times 2. So you get 10 points. Levels 6 and 7 is 5 times 3. So that's 15. And it just goes on from there. So basically, side objectives scale up. And you'll get to the point where, you probably get more doing side objectives to level up than story progression. But eventually people are like, I'm bored of side objectives. I want to just continue on with the story, like all things need to have an end at some point. Now, weapons, this weapons you have at the time. Unless stated otherwise, you're only allowed to carry 2 weapons on your person. Now, of course, you can do different stuff, like some classes can have abilities where they can carry more than 1 item. Same thing with backgrounds. You can also buy items that allow you to carry 2 weapons, but you base more than 2 weapons. But you kind of start off with like 2 holsters for 2 different weapons. You kind of get your choice there. Ammunition, the ammunition that you can fire without worrying about your wealth. Clothing, what you wear, depending on what it is you are wearing, you can get some benefits as well as some detriments. Inventory, which happens to be other items you happen to be carrying. Attribute points. Now, this is where we kind of get into interesting stuff, where everyone starts off with 50 points to distribute as they see fit between attributes, attributes and and trade skills. So basically, HP, stamina, wellness, strength, accuracy, reflexes, endurance, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, luck. You can put those 50 points into any of these as you see fit. Any of them, all 50. Yes, this includes HP, stamina, and wellness. Alternatively, you can keep the base on HP, stamina, and wellness, then roll a 4d6 towards every attribute and drop the lowest one. You re-roll any ones and can only re-roll low numbers twice. So basically, you keep 10, you keep 50, you keep 100, not including any of the boosts from your class, and roll a 46 in all of these. So you roll a 46 for strength, 46 for accuracy, 46 to reflexes, and so on and so forth. Then you drop the lowest of those sixes, add them up, and then put them into any of the stat that you want. You re-roll any ones, yes, including if you re-roll a one and get another one, you still re-roll it. You just re-roll until you get a 2 or higher. And you can only re-roll low numbers twice. So if you get a 2, you can re-roll that to get something higher. You can only do that twice. But that's basically it. Then you get your train skills, your done skills. Then you get your abilities. Remember how I did all the attributes and they're like, hey, here's all the attributes for the different classes? Well, everyone starts off with 2 abilities from their level 1 selection. You gain new abilities every other level, levels 3, 5, 7, etc. And at these levels, you take an ability from your new selection or 2 from the previous ones. So let's say you make a character, you're level 1, you get 2 abilities from your class. Then when you get to level 3, you either go to your level 3 selection and gain a new skill, or go back to level 1 and get 2 from level 1. Then we get pets, which is basically you're going to be your companion out in the west. Your companionship isn't the only benefit of having a companion. They can also do stuff. Like maybe you can have a falcon to deliver messages. And what that basically does is that when you go to a town, there's always going to be a spot where you can have your falcon rest. And if you have your falcon's rest there, they consider it their home there. So anywhere you go, you can release your falcon to deliver a message to that town and deliver your message, or go there to pick up messages for you. And if you stay put long enough, they'll come back to you, and either if they deliver your message and they came back, or they'll bring back a message to you. Or you can have a hawk that can perform certain maneuvers if it sees people or enemies surrounding you. So basically, if you want to check your surroundings, you can have your hawk go around. You have a hawk to go around, and if it notices anything that's a sort of a threat to you, they could do a certain maneuver, and you can say, oh, hey, we have people setting up an ambush, or something like that. Or you can have a hound to help you hunt, or it'd be an alarm system by barking. You can have a cat to keep pests out of your food stocks when camping. All sorts of stuff. If you have an animal, you could probably think of a use for it. But the thing is, you'll probably have to train them to have them be able to do that. And then you also have mounts, whether it be a horse, a carriage, or an otherwise. And of course, every mount has their own inventory system to hold items for you. So basically, you have your own inventory, and you have the inventory of your mounts, depending on how many you have. Let's come back up here into the mechanic side of things. Let's talk a bit about the other mechanics because there's some fun stuff here. Like, remember how with the gunslinger, I said that you basically get like double rewards from dueling? Well, dueling is its own mechanic. Dueling operates a bit differently from combat in how it starts. How combat starts is that, you roll initiative and you fight and you do the whole thing. Your box standard RPG tabletop system. That's just how that works. Though, if it is a knife fight or a brawl, then it does operate the same as regular combat. So, you get duels if you're doing a knife fight or a fist-to-fist combat, in which case, higher initiative, goes first, and he basically just acts as a combat, except it's just between two people. But when it involves guns, typically a standoff, that's when dueling mechanics come into play. Now, dueling here is going to be fun. Standoffs are fun. The two gunslingers doesn't necessarily have to be the gunslinger class, just, two people, having guns, right? Having a standoff. The two gunslingers will meet and stand off against one another. Who will go first is determined by a sleight of hand check to see who has the quicker hands. So basically, you call a person out or someone called you out. One of you say, hey, I want to have a standoff. I want to duel you with guns. So you go into the middle of town and both parties are going to do a sleight of hand check. On a natural 20, the opponent gets automatically knocked out and bleeding out. So let's say you roll a natural 20, bam, the other person's down and out for the count. They're knocked out, they're bleeding out, they're going to die unless they get treated. However, if they nat 20, you get knocked out and start bleeding out automatically. There is no fight there. Natural 20 is a one and done deal, right? But on a natural 1, then the unlucky bastard will drop their gun, which results in them not only not getting the dueling shot, but also miss out on the first round of combat. Meanwhile, every other number will result in excess, but the higher number gets the dueling shot. So, let's say you roll a 15 and the other guy rolls a 12. Well, because you roll a 15, you get a free shot. You get to shoot them. Now, once the dueling shot's damage is dealt, then combat begins with the winner of the shot going first every round. So, basically, you get to go first. And you basically get 2 shots. You get 2 free shots off of the other enemy if you win. So it's very much high risk, high reward if you do a duel instead of just regular combat. Now, the benefits of winning duels is being able to kill and loot without having fear of the law intervening. So basically, like, hey, if it's a legitimate duel, no one can interfere. The guy wins. The other one loses, dies, and gets his stuff stolen. Nothing can be done about that. It's permissible under the law. Everything's fine. As well as growing your folklore. The more duels you win, the more folklore you gain. Thus, the more famous you become. This gives you both fame and infamy amounts depending on the encounter. So it's up to DM discretion. Now, however, the duel must stay between the two challengers. If anyone interrupts the duel, then any folklore benefits will be forfeit. And if the interrupters aid any of the challengers, then that challenger will gain only infamy. So basically, if someone just interrupts, then it's like, okay, no one gains any benefit out of this. No one wins, no one loses, nothing happens. But if the interrupter aids somebody, then you gain absolute infamy, because who the hell wants to duel someone who has a reputation of not being fair in a duel. It's not going to happen. Now, this leads nicely into the folklore mechanics. Folklore is how famous or infamous you are, the story of your character that is told far and wide. And depending on the amount of folklore you have gained and the ratio you have of fame and infamy can affect how the world reacts to you, or whatever bonuses and detriments you gain once people find out who you are. There are even backgrounds that give you starting folklore, like the lawman, the outlaw, and the gambler. With being known comes the usage of monikers and symbols. These are the names and items your character gets known for that will activate the benefits and detriments of your fame and infamy. At some points, you can choose to divulge your true identity at your own discretion. At other times, it's out of your hand to be revealed whether you wanted to or not. Once you reach a total of 150 folklore, you will gain recognition status and be given a moniker and a symbol. This can be based off of feats your character has done or something that is attributed to mostly them. The effects of these bonuses will only get more drastic the higher your folklore becomes. You gain folklore by accomplishing tasks. These tasks can range from winning duels, completing side objectives, discovering things, or performing special feats at a public place. And you only lose folklore by being idle and doing things for a time determined by the GM. So basically, if in the in-game timeline of events, if your character is just doing nothing at all for a decent amount of time, people will just stop talking about you. People will forget about you. You're not going to be as famous or infamous. You're basically on the down low. And the GM, or the DM rather, can kind of determine how long in-game it needs for, folklore to go down. Once your fame and infamy reach a 50-point gap between them, so basically you have like 150 fame and 200 infamy, you officially reach a state. And the state, and you get and these states differ between the two. With fame, you enter a state of famous. With infamy, you gain infamous. If you are famous, the public and governmental officials will adore you, while the criminal underworld will hate you. If you are infamous, the public will fear you, and the governmental officials will be gunning for you, while the criminal underworld will respect you. Of course, this is how it generally works, but exceptions can be made. For example, one can be a noble outlaw by being infamous, but hated by both the government and criminals, but worshipped by the public. Is also with this that bounties become a thing, but essentially, while it's generally the rule of thumb, with fame, you're loved by the government and the people and hated by criminals, and with infamous, you're feared by the public and hated by the government, but respected by the criminals. You can kind of do your own little mix of both, depending on the circumstances of the character and the story of stuff. It just depends on how you have it all set up. But as I said, this is also where bounties become a thing. That's kind of where we can kind of go into bounties. Bounties are simply jobs put out by officials to gun someone down and or capture them. These bounties can be out on other people or on you. Whatever the case, they tend to pay extremely well, and you get your choice of having to be done in notes or in military-grade ammunition. Though if you're in stable Republic land, chances are you're mostly going to be paid in notes without having much say in it. There are two types of bounties you can stumble upon in the world. The official bounties posted up by local law enforcement or the government. These can be done purely on government payroll or by individual citizens submitted to local enforcement. They can mostly just be kill jobs or captured jobs or doing either or. Then there is the manhunts performed by the criminal underworld. This will be on either very prolific lawmen or after people who anger crime bosses and deserve retribution. This could be wanting someone dead or captured, one or the other, or even sending a message by attacking the target through proxy, which basically means, like burning down their property, kidnapping family members, or killing family members, this, that, or the other. By doing certain actions, players can wind up on either of these bounty types with a price on their head. The difference is that it is easy to find out if the local law enforcement has a price on their head, as the advertised bounties very openly. Meanwhile, it'll take some time digging to find criminal manhunts, as they are far more subtle with their jobs. There are different ways to handle having a bounty on your head. You can just ignore it and just use it as a means of finding where the opponents, if you're like a gunslinger, you can use that as a means of saying, hey, come at me. I want to gun you down. I want to test my mettle. Or if it's a governmental bounty, you can turn yourself in peacefully and face your judgment. Basically, like, hey, I'm just going to face my execution, or hey, I'm just going to go in jail for however long I need in game, or do community service, or whatever else is worthy of your punishment. But if that's not your style, you can instead go to your local sheriff's office or post office and pay off your bounty, depending on the size of the bounty, of course. Because there could be at some points where your price is ridiculously high, there's just no way to pay that off. You're just going to have to turn yourself in or get killed or captured. Now, if the criminal organizations are after you, you'll have to somehow find the person who sent out the manhunt and negotiate the release yourself. So basically, if you found out you have a manhunt on you, you'll have to figure out how to find out who the hell sent out that manhunt and basically say, hey, what can I do to no longer have this manhunt on my head? I would rather not have that. Now, if you're interested in performing a bounty or a manhunt, then, it's pretty simple. You just have to perform the bounty details to the letter. This can result in killing the target and bringing proof, capturing the target, or doing whatever special instructions the manhunt has. The rewards displayed, unless stated otherwise, is what you... Oh, actually, Unless stated otherwise, is what you get if you kill the target and bring proof. Bringing in the target alive doubles that amount. And if you are a bounty hunter, you receive double on all bounties regardless. So basically, if you kill the target and bring proof, and you're a bounty hunter, you gain the same amount of money as if you brought them alive. But if you did bring the target in alive, then you get even double that amount. So you basically get quadruple the price. So yeah, if you're a bounty hunter, you can get pretty big payday on bounties. Now, if you happen to lose folklore, then bounties and manhunts will drop in their reward amounts. The lower the amount, the less people will be interested. Inversely, the higher the amount, the more people will be interested. And if you get high enough an amount, then you'll get larger groups of hunters after you. So basically, if you get a high enough bounty, yeah, there's going to be some people really, really gunning for you. And all that's really left to talk about is, hunting, which, is, kind of, not really a whole lot to really talk about. That basically means, let's see. Very much difference between hunting a man and a beast in the early stages, but what you get out of it is certainly different. Never mind the baiting and tracking and trapping, this section will mostly pertain to what you can get out of hunting beasts. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, this is basically going to explain to you basically different ways on how to keep leathers and meat mostly pristine when you're trying to hunt. And this is kind of like, your rating system. Your terrible quality is like the lowest quality is practically worthless and unusable. No one's going to pay for terrible quality meat and leather. You can't really use it. It's very poor. Then you just get actual poor, which is not the best quality ever, but it can be slightly usable. It takes more poor quality stuff to be able to make stuff. They're very, very cheap. You can't sell them for much. Decent, that's the base quality. Everything's at normal rate. Good is professional work was done. You get better quality meat and leather. You get to use less of it. You can get more money out of it. Then you get pristine, which is expertly acquired meat and leather. This is basically just does like your max amount of resource usage to make stuff, as well as maximum amount of money you can get out of selling it. Uh, things tend to lower quality. Tends to be lower quality just by happening, like to get instant terrible qualities to blow up the animal, or just using too high calibers or gauges on particular beasts. So basically, if you use too strong of a caliber of a weapon, yeah, you're just going to end up with instant terrible. Like, everything's going to be absolutely useless. You basically just blown the thing apart. And so you ain't getting much. You ain't getting much from a squirrel or a rabbit if you kill them with a shotgun point blank. And for most big game, using firearms start you off at poor. If you're using a bow and arrow, varmint rifles, and traps, you can basically start off with decent, standard, kind of as a baseline, unless you critically fail at the scavenging check, which can give you terrible or poor quality depending. A really good roll can give you good quality, while natural 20s can certainly help you in getting you pristine quality. Also goes without saying, the better the quality, more price. Yeah, price the RSL. So basically, your baseline is decent. If you do a really good roll, you get good quality. If you do a nat 20, you do pristine. If you fail the roll, you can kind of go poor, but if you nat 20, you go terrible, and you also blow up the thing, you get terrible. Now, that's basically all I really have to go with this game. I don't have a whole lot said in on this. As I said, I've worked on this for maybe a month, sort of. Though, if you really talk about construction, like effective construction time, it's basically sort of like a week or so of work. I definitely need to do more for it. But I've been meaning to get back into it. And I think you could use a really, really good excuse to get back into things, which I kind of like. If if the Wicked guys were really truthful in what they say and say that they would like to get their guys in on it, maybe I can even get them to help further make it. Maybe get some suggestions with anybody that's good with tabletop games. As I'm very much a newbie tabletop creator, and I think I may have gotten a bit ambitious with this game. But yeah, that's basically what I wanted to show off to everybody, and kind of show. It could have been a bit more special if my Twitter account went to basically 1,000 followers on Twitter, but it's fine. I was gonna show this off anyways, but I kind of saw how really, really quick I was getting close to 1,000. I was hoping I'd get to 1,000 before before I was getting to the live stream, which could have been great. But it is what it is. I really have no idea what else to talk about. And so far, it seems like the only people who were in chat are kind of gone. The Wicked guys, Matt and Mike, are off doing their own things, got no one to talk to, and it's been a couple of hours. We've been at this for a good while, so I'd say be kind of good to call it quits here. Be kind of safe. Beginning next month, so within a couple of days, I'm going to need to start searching for more people to, do episodes for Table Talk on. That's going to be kind of fun. I think I got someone for July at least, so I need to get someone for June. Be acting a lot more on Twitter, though not as much, as I'm going to be, one, searching for a job, two, working on this game. I also need to work on another game I need to work on. Then I need to work on a comic for the Mythilverse, since that just got funded. So I need to get working on that. So that's going to eat up a bit of time to get that ball rolling. But, it's been feeling good to be productive creativity-wise. Can't complain about that. Yeah, I'm not sure what else to really say. I hope you all had fun with this video, and I hope the future people watching this enjoy this live stream. There was a lot going on there. No, talked about mostly my own projects when I prefer to talk about other people's projects, but sometimes shit just happens. Sometimes you prepare for a interview and stuff just don't happen to line up, and you just have to improvise. I had no way of planning for any of this, so I just played it by ear. Hopefully, the quality of the video didn't suffer too much because of that. But I think it'd be safe to say we're going to call it here. Be sure to check out our friends of Wicked Publishing who came here. In the description, got the links for their stuff as well as my stuff. I'll be sounding them out here and now. You can follow Wicked Publishing on Twitter with twitter.com/Wicked Publishing. Believe on there they should have something on there where you can find their own personal Twitter accounts. Should be easy to find them. There's also a link to the Wicked store where you can buy some merchandise for all the different comics that they have published, as well as buying digital and physical copies of the comics that they have published with squareup.com/store/Wicked Publishing. Be sure to buy some cool stuff there if you are a fan of comics and you like their comics. They got some really cool people. I'm friends with a lot of them. They're really nice people. I like to see them prosper, especially considering that it's due to the Mythilverse, who is published by Wicked Publishing and recently got fully funded off a Kickstarter, that has accepted a comic book idea of mine that I hope people will enjoy. Then you can and I don't have it in right now, but as soon as this live stream is done, I'm going to get their YouTube page up. They do podcasts every once in a while where they check up on their creators, see how their stuff is doing, see how they themselves are doing. Just make the community interactive and talk about the different projects they got getting funded and other types of news related stuff, really, when it comes to their publication. So I would definitely recommend checking that out at any point. And of course, you can also support me by going onto my Patreon at patreon.com/Duskquill. Oh, I just remembered I forgot to put in Subscribestar. My Subscribestar. I'll be definitely doing that later. You can also get to my PayPal if you don't like Subscribestar or Patreon. You just want to donate to me directly to paypal.me/DuskquillTeam and just, donate directly. And you can, of course, follow me on Twitter with twitter.com/Duskquill_team. You can also contact me directly for business or anything else with Duskquill Team. at gmail.com. So be sure to do all that stuff. And I hope to see you all later, whether it be on Twitter, Discord, or at or next month's episode of Table Talk. I hope you all have a beautiful day. This is going to be Duskquill signing off.